Nearly there. Nope, seems to have stopped. Just give it another minute. It didn't seem to work. I'm just going to give it one more try. The YouTube live feed seems to be hitting a certain point and then getting stuck, so we might have to go without that. As long as we're recording, then we'll be able to post that after the fact.
My top of my thing says live on YouTube.
Yeah, it says that it's live, but in the setup, the bar is getting to a certain point and then stopping, so I don't think the setup is completing. Because usually it comes up with a screen to confirm that it's actually live. Yeah, and it just defaults back out. It says the connection timed out. Okay, so we are recording, so we will go with that, and then we can upload the video afterwards. Okay, so let me just panelists. We've got everyone. Okay, so if we're all ready to get started, I'll start with the moderator script. Okay, so the May 21st, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is about to be convened. As a precautionary measure to reduce the spread of coronavirus, all town buildings are closed to the public. Therefore, this meeting will be held by remote participation. My name is Kelly Grant, and I will be moderating participation for this meeting. I will now turn it over to the chair of the meeting.
My name is Ed Hoops. I'm the chairman of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission. I will begin by taking a roll call for quorum. David Bernstein.
Here.
Rick Bishop.
Present.
Tom Durkin.
Here.
Ed Hoops is here. Paul Huggins.
Here.
Ellie Lawrence.
Here.
And Patricia Mulhern.
Here.
With a quorum present, I will now call the meeting to order. I will now ask the moderator to explain how remote participation works.
Okay, so pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 23rd, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching this virtual meeting and perhaps by the live feed on YouTube, but that may not be working at this point. You may also listen to the meeting by dialing into the number provided on the notice of meeting. We'll also post a recording of this meeting to the Town of Yarmouth website as soon as we are able. Please be patient as we work to overcome any technological challenges with the virtual meeting. To reduce confusion during the meeting, all participants of the virtual meeting are muted by the moderator. As participants are called upon to speak, they will be unmuted. Applicants can use the raise hand button or press *9 on their phone to identify themselves to the chair. The meeting host will then unmute applicants when they are called upon to speak. During the portion of the hearing that's designated for public comment, the chair or moderator will ask who in the audience has any public comments or questions. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be able to make comments using the raise hand button within the virtual meeting. If you're dialed into the phone number provided, you can press *9 on your phone to indicate that you would like to comment. Please wait for the chairman to recognize you before speaking. As an alternative to making comments via the online audio or phone, you can also submit comments to the moderator via the virtual meeting chat function. To do this, click on the chat icon and type your message. When prompted, the moderator will read comments and questions into the record. Members of the public who wish to provide comment are asked to identify themselves by first and last name and affiliation for the public record and then provide their comment. If you wish to speak during a hearing, please consider the following guidelines. Do not use speakerphone, do not use Bluetooth devices, mute all background noises, clearly state your name each and every time prior to speaking. Prior to concluding opportunities for discussion, comment, or question, the chair will ask, at this time, I did not hear any request for additional comment. If you wish to speak, please indicate now, and I will ask this final time if there is anyone who wishes to speak on the matter at hand. All votes must be roll call votes. After a motion is made and there is a second, the chair will ask the moderator to take the roll call vote. The moderator will report the roll call vote. All motions, decisions, documents, and letters will be verbally read into the record. If it appears the meeting cannot or should not proceed, then the moderator will recommend that the chair request to continue the hearing to a later date and time or until public meetings can resume normally. I will now hand the meeting back to the chair.
All right, thank you, Kelly. We'll get right into it. The first order of business today is a request for determination of applicability. The first one is a continued hearing from May 7th, 2020 for Aunt Edith's Neighborhood Association, Aunt Edith's Road, South Yarmouth, replacement in kind of 10 12-inch pilings associated with the licensed pier in Bass River. And who is here for that?
The representative was Down Cape Engineering, Dan Ojala.
Okay, is Dan? I do not see Dan here.
We haven't received any updated material since the last meeting, so I'm going to recommend that this item be continued until we receive. I wasn't at the last meeting, so just to clarify, my understanding is that they were asked to go away and revise the RDA so that the configuration of the dock and the floats met that was permitted previously.
Yeah, I thought we continued. He did. Apparently he just didn't get done with that work then.
I'm assuming so. I haven't heard from him.
Okay, so should we continue for another one, or until next time, or wait until? Well, we have to go to date certain. So
yeah, so we can continue to June 4th.
June 4th. Okay. All right. So is there a motion? I'm sorry, Ellie. Do you have a question?
I make a motion that we continue this until June 4th.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Who did that? Was that Tom?
I was one of the voices.
Okay, so Tom seconded, and it's been moved and seconded. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bishop?
Aye.
Durkin?
Aye.
Bernstein?
Aye.
Lawrence?
Aye.
Hoops?
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern? Sorry.
All right, next order of business is another request for determination of applicability. Christine Mimaris, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, 55 Sullivan Road, West Yarmouth, proposed deck expansion within the buffer zone to Big Sandy Pond.
Aye.
And who is here for this? Chris Mimaris, are you here? Are you there?
Has her hand raised.
Okay, Chris, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead. And you would just state your name for the record and then
Sure.
describe what you'd like to do.
Okay, my name is Chris Mamaris, and my current deck is 12 feet from the house towards the pond and 16 feet along the house. I'd like to expand it to 4 feet, so it's 16 feet from the house towards the pond, so another 4 feet. And I want to go alongside the house to basically double the size of the deck. I have previous approval from the commission to create a patio and a retaining wall that would be about 4 feet. And what I'd like to do is see how this deck expansion works for me, because my plan is to die in this house, and hopefully it's in my 90s. And so I'm looking for, I have a ranch and I'm looking for one level living. So this expanded deck would give me the ability to have a table and chairs. Right now, the deck is too small to have, when I have the chairs out there, to be able to walk, around towards the stairs. So what I'd like to do is expand the deck so I can have a dining table out there, as well as some seating and my grill. And then I want to see how this works. And it's quite possible that I certainly don't need a 4-foot retaining wall. I would need something smaller, but I'm not even sure I need to do that, because the way the topography is, most of, the house, it doesn't sit on a hill, but the property slopes down towards the pond. And the 4-foot retaining wall was needed to create a level living area. Well, by having the deck expansion, I've got my level living area. And if I were to have to, put a retaining wall, it's going to be a lot shorter. So there's less disruption to the land.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to the commissioners, let them ask any questions they may have, and then I will go from there. So commissioners, any comments or concerns? I don't see anybody's hands raised.
No.
Is that true?
Hold on.
All right, Kelly. Oh, sorry, Rick.
I'm just I have a little confusion with the language in the report. It says request for deck expansion within the buffer zone. The deck expansion is well out of the 35 node disturb zone. So
Right.
I know we're not within the 100, but
It is within the 100, but not the
Right.
35.
okay. I just want to make sure.
Correct.
I saw that on the plan, but because it was called out, I thought I might be missing something. So thank you. I'm sorry for that.
Okay, anybody else? All right, if not, Kelly, any comments or concerns?
No, I have no additional comments.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who has any comments or concerns with this project?
I don't see any attendees raising their hands.
All right, nobody else in the audience with the concerns for 55 Sullivan Road? If not, then would somebody like to make a motion for a -3?
I would make a motion that we approve this RDA for 55 Sullivan Road for a -3 determination.
All right, is there a second?
Second, Rick Bishop.
Rick Bishop, the seconded. All those in favor, I'm sorry, Kelly, please call the roll.
Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. And so a negative in this case is a positive for you. I don't know if that's been explained to you, not Chris. That means you do not have to do any further filing with the Conservation Commission for this project, okay?
Oh, okay, wonderful, thank you. So I have the go-ahead to build the expansion.
You have to go ahead to do that. You'll have to wait for the building permit and everything, so you can
Right.
check with Kelly. It'll be a couple days before we can actually get any of the paperwork done, but just check with Kelly and she can give you a little bit more guidance as to when the work can start. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Thank you. Our next order of business is a notice of intent. It's been continued from March 19th, 2020, April 16th, 2020, May 7th, 2020. It's for SE 83-2227 Green Harbor Village LTD Partnership, 182 Baxter Avenue, West Yarmouth. Proposed beach management, raking, and nourishment on Lewis Bay. Bob Perry, I think I saw you out there in the audience. Bob, you have to unmute.
I'm unmuted.
There you go.
I'm on a speaker. Will it be clear enough for you?
Right now, you're kind of just a little shaky right now. I'll let you know. If you see me waving my hand, you'll know we can't hear you, okay? Bob?
Is it better now?
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better.
Okay, I'm going to try again. How are we doing?
Yep, good.
Okay, let's hope for the best. Just to be brief, we submitted some revised materials. For the record, Bob Perry, Cape Cod Engineering. I believe a representative of the Davenport companies is with us tonight. Jamie Vieira may be on the line. I am representing the Green Harbor Resort, and we filed a notice of intent for beach nourishment and beach maintenance in the form of raking and cleaning up. This work had been going on since, decades ago. They had an expired order, so this application is to reconstitute that program. We were before you a month ago. We submitted some revised information relating to a monitoring recommendation, as well as marked out on the site some of the dune boundary that was there. And we didn't make a lot of changes because there really weren't that many changes to make. But the upshot is that the activity for nourishment would be followed by a monitoring activity that we outlined in our letter. I reviewed it with Kelly a few days ago, and we didn't have a lot of trouble there. There's some conditions I believe the commission has for routine beach raking. I've not seen those, and we can talk about that. I put in my application something basic, having spoken with Davenport's crew and the various folks that do this work at their resorts, that we put the beach raking in terms of as per past practice, primarily relating to the practice of proper disposal, not leaving it around the site too long, but there are qualifications relating to maintaining a reasonable distance from the boundary of any vegetation or a dune, which is approximately 10 feet. And that area can be understood by the workman visually with proper guidance from the Davenport management. And, if it required a couple of signs, I think that might be all that's necessary to keep everybody on an even keel. So the basics here, I think I should just turn back to the chair and we'll try to answer any questions you have concerning where we are at this point. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the commissioners, ask if anybody has any comments or concerns. Okay, Rick, I see you have your hand up.
I just mentioned before the hearing started that I was recusing myself from this and the next two hearings.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
So let the record reflect that Rick Bishop has recused himself from this hearing.
Jamie Vieira from Davenport would like to speak.
All right, hold on. Let me. So, commissioners, do you have any other questions right now? All right, so then we'll go back.
I do. I have one question on the access to this for the machinery. Does the plan show where the path is? I know it said it's going to change the path, but
yes, we did. we changed that for you. It's now at a location where there was a pathway opening. It is now drawn to be 10 feet wide.
Ah,
And
okay.
yeah, right there in the center. And
Mhm.
it's just a sand pathway at this point. We don't think it would need any structural improvements, possibly a small border of landscape timber. But if we wanted to find ourselves with a more stable ramp, we would come back and talk with you about it or bring it in and show Kelly.
Okay.
So I don't see where you're talking about though, Bob. Are you talking about where it says widen path to 10 feet?
Yes, that's amidst the little playground collection there. That's where we've got an opening already.
Okay, I thought that was further over, wasn't? Oh, that swing set. Okay, I see what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna let other commissioners. No.
This is Pat Mulhern.
Okay, Pat, go ahead.
It's noted that there was no volume on the material specified for the nourishment, and that should be put on the plan.
Ah,
Bob?
I would have to double check. I thought we had put that in there. And there isn't a specific volume in the sense that, and I thought I calculated that at one point, and I'm so sorry that it may be not front and center. I'm going
just to clarify, it's Kelly here. 500 cubic yards is called out in the notice. It's just not called out on the plan.
Right. We calculated that based on the profile. If you've been there, you know how flat and uniform the beach is. That volume results from a calculation of that very thin triangle. I think it would probably be a maximum, but as we haven't talked a lot about this, but the nourishment monitoring goes a little bit into the general practice and the need for this. We have a very flat beach, and the need for nourishment is primarily driven by the prospect that the beach could become so low that moon tides would inundate it. And that's why the profile you've seen is very slight, a very slight change. The other case that would exist for beach nourishment here is if the beach were to wash away from the leading edge and become very, very small, in which case the likelihood is that we would have already nourished at least once or twice by the time that happens. We would be monitoring and noticing new changing conditions, and we would be back before you with the understanding that the nourishment is taking on a different profile that would be generated by the monitoring. It's just no way that I could envision doing this, except the prospect is that the beach can be maintained now as it is, as a very wide, but very shallow beach that wouldn't have any dramatic terrain changes. But I thank you for finding that, Kelly. I knew it was in there, but sorry we didn't get it on the plan.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Kelly, are you good with the edge of lawn designation where it stands?
There's still the issue to be resolved of the upper inland edge of the dune. But if the commission is calling out that they're accepting the seaward delineation of the dune, then that is what this permit is related to. So I think if we're specific in that regard, then I think that the landward edge of the dune is not being addressed as part of this order of conditions.
Okay, I'm fine with that, but it's whoever makes who makes the motion then should make sure that we stipulate that we're only certifying the seaward edge of the dune. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that's all I was asking about. All right, any of the other commissioners?
And just obviously that seaward edge is a seasonally changing edge as well. So it would need to be reviewed at the beginning of each season or at the beginning of any nourishment as
Right.
to the extent of the work.
Kelly, I see in your notes, you mentioned there are 2 additional beach profiles that need to be provided for east and west sections. Have you received
Yeah,
those
so
yet?
they were, I haven't received those, but they were going to be a part of a monitoring plan that that can be included as a condition that those be provided as a baseline plan before any nourishment take place.
Okay, so you're good with it, going with this, with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
May I interject briefly just to say that
Is
that
this
would be,
Jamie?
oh no, it's Bob.
Oh, sorry,
Perry.
Bob. Sorry, Bob.
Thank you. The 2 profiles would be looking exactly or very similar to the one you've got. It's perfectly fine for us to give you those at just any time.
Okay.
And certainly, as we've said in the monitoring, that someone goes forward with nourishment, we would be recording the beach condition before nourishment. And that's
Okay.
when that profile would get updated.
All right. Okay. I'm fine with that as long as Kelly is fine under that circumstance. Then I'm good to go with that. Any further discussion among the commission?
Yeah.
Paul.
Thank you. Hold on. I'm reading a couple of the notes here, and there's a a note saying that I think you've already talked about the dune delineation has not been revised, and due to the changing nature of this resource area, it would be reasonable to include a condition that raking shall occur no closer than 10 feet from the toe of the dune. Has that been included in what you've said?
That is included as a recommended condition.
Okay.
Under the mission.
And also the person carrying out the raking shall meet with the conservation agent at the beginning of the season to review this requirement. That'll be in the conditions as well.
Whoever makes the motion should include that. Yes.
Okay. And then there's a note that says the new plan includes a note that beach cleaning shall be carried out consistent with past practice. And there's a recommendation, I guess it is, that this should be removed. And the raking condition should be something else. And there's a note to that effect. Is that to be discussed too?
Yeah, so my comment related to that is just that that's a very generic statement, and I think it would be helpful for it to be clarified with some specific points. And so those have been included as a draft motion as well for conditions related to beach raking. And speaking with Bob previously, just to include those conditions on the plan so that it's very clear for everyone involved what those conditions are. So those can be included in the motion as well. And we can review those in advance of the motion if you would like to.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure they weren't overlooked. Okay, thank you.
All right, commissioners, any further discussion among the commission? All right, Kelly, any other comments?
I have a general comment that I think will relate to all of these 4 projects, and that is that there's evidence of some recent work on the beach on the South Shore Drive, and I didn't get back out to Baxter Ave, so I don't know if the same work has occurred there. But that's obviously work that's been carried out before we've issued any permitting, which is concerning. But also there are signs that the beach is being excavated, where sediment is being moved around with excavation equipment. And I just wanted to clarify that that's not what is being approved by these permit applications, that these applications are for nourishment and raking of debris only and not for removing sediment around on the beach. So I wanted to make sure the commission were aware of that and that the applicant was clear on what the expectation was in terms of the work that would be carried out in the future. And obviously it's a little concerning that work is being carried out now prior to the permits being issued.
All right, so do we have, Bob, do you want to handle that, or is Jamie in the audience wants to comment on that?
Bob Perry here. I haven't been aware of any activity because, of course, we're not there. I think Jamie Vieira, if he's here, can speak to it, or I will certainly convey what we've just discussed to them.
Okay. Jamie, go ahead. Make sure you unmute yourself.
Okay, this is Jamie VR from Davenport. I'm not aware of the full extent of what Kelly was referencing there, but I'm fully aware of what the scope of our approval would entail in terms of raking. I haven't seen the conditions, so obviously we'd like to hear them so we know what the parameters are. One point I wanted to reference, and that is on the plan. You'll recall when we originally submitted, we asked for 10-foot access along the west side. We heard the commission loud and clear the last time, and we removed that. The point of access is presently now in the center, shown on the plan. It's about 6 feet wide, and we're looking to make it 10 feet wide. We would remove the existing ramp that's there, and we would like the ability to bring in some sand to bring those elevations and make that grade sand versus a ramp. So there would be some addition of sand in that area so we can create that pitch for purposes of having a smaller piece of machinery than we envisioned going out on the beach, but we still need 10 feet. Sir, some of the commissioners' understanding, that piece of equipment goes out maybe once a week. Other times there's some daily just cleanup, and that's by hand. So individuals may go out after the day's events and come out with a small hand rake and clean up some areas and make sure anybody who left any trash picks it up, etc. The actual raking per se with machinery is now going to enter through that central area. We'd like it to be 10 feet wide, and we'd like to utilize sand versus that board ramp.
Okay, so what about the excavation that's been worked on already?
I've got to find out what it is. I'm not my department, Ed. Apologize for that. There's a lot of things that are going on with the resorts as we wait to open. So I'm not 100% sure what that entails. But as I said before, I know certainly what it is that we can do here under the parameters of this NOI or ultimately order of conditions. And as it comes to maintenance, that would be the raking. As it comes to nourishment, we've got those parameters spelled out as well for purposes of what would be required for profiles, inspections, etc.
Okay, so you understand that we don't want to see other heavy machinery on the beach or doing any kind of excavation on the beach as part of that. That's not what this is being given. That's
Understood.
not being given permission to do that.
I understand that.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion among the commissioners? Hold on here. I see somebody's got their hand raised. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, on that, the point of the work being taking place on the beach right now, it's kind of surprising to me that the representatives don't know what that work is. And I wondered if that would make it impossible for us to move forward on these requests until, in fact, we find out what's going on.
Well, I think, Kelly, I mean, do you feel that there's any, has the work that's been done, is that, has that altered the resource area at all? I mean, other than, obviously it's moving sand, I guess is what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm generally a little concerned that given, there's a certain level of trust that the work is going to be carried out according to the notice, but even before we've gotten to the point of issuing an order, we already have an issue. So it doesn't give me a lot of comfort that the permit is actually going to be followed. The work, from what I could see, and I had received some photos of like a small excavator that was moving sediment from one part of the beach to another. And what I could see at South Shore Drive today when I was there is that there are areas that are starting to build up as dunes. So there's like an increased elevation, and that material is being removed from one area and spread out across the beach. So it's not allowing for those dunes to generate and where they otherwise would be in a natural situation. So that's a little concerning to me. I feel like we shouldn't be moving sediment from one part of the beach to another. Allow it to build up, allow it to form a dune where it will. because that's for the benefit of the protection of the property. So I do have some concern that it doesn't bode well at this point in the process, that we're already seeing this issue come up.
Well, I would agree with that. I'd want to, at the same time, we need to come up to a way of moving forward. I don't like the fact that they've been doing any kind of work like that. And if I think we'll cover what you were just talking about over on South Shore when we get to that hearing. I have a little bit more to say on that. But as far as Green Harbor is concerned, can we move forward with this one?
Definitely. I mean, we need to move forward with permitting just so we don't end up
Right.
in the situation. So I think yes, but I think it needs to be abundantly clear that. Sorry, someone's doing the dishes in the background. 1 minute.
So yeah, I think it is. I think it's important that again, what Kelly is saying is that it's abundantly clear that nobody is allowed to be doing any kind of excavation work on the beach. There should be no reason for that other than for outside the parameters of this permit, which has not yet been issued. I will say this much that.
Sorry, I've put the draft conditions up on the screen so that everyone can see those, and it does call out in there that, you know, the purpose of raking is to just skim the surface to remove debris. There shouldn't be the moving of any sediment around on the beach.
Okay, I'll give 1 minute for people to look through that very quickly, but again, I think again, in order to move the permitting forward, I think we need to do that. At the same time, I am going to certainly pay a little bit more attention to this site as well as the other sites at this point, given that this sort of thing is happening. It's disturbing. And just I will caution the representatives from Davenport now that just so they understand that I go back and forth between work and I come home from work that way past Green Harbor just about every day. So I will pay a little bit more attention to that as I'm driving through. I hope that I don't see anything outside the parameters of that kind of thing. Do we need to run through all of the change to the beach raking and regulations, or?
And most of these conditions here are the standard conditions. I can very quickly run through the additional conditions, which are on that second page there. And that's just agreeing the staked location before nourishment takes place with some prior notification of that. And an inspection of the material as it's being brought onto the beach to just to confirm that it's suitable material. That's in addition to the grain size analysis that should be provided in advance of any nourishment. We've got the beach profiles there. We have the beach monitoring plan, which we have. And actually that says 2000 on here, but sorry, that may have been an error from, I'm just going to double check in terms of the volume in the notice of intent, because I think I've copied and pasted that.
Check that as well.
Yeah, so in the notice of intent, it's 500 cubic yards. I think one of the other notices has 2000, so I've copied and pasted the wrong number. So just to amend that, it's a 500 cubic yard volume of beach nourishment. And if they need to exceed that amount for any reason, then they would need to come back to the commission for review. Beach raking conducted solely for the purpose of removing seaweed and trash, with making an effort to remove as little sediment as possible. And only use in high frequency areas. I think we already discussed, you know, their intention in terms of just doing this once a week as it's needed. Staying 10 feet seaward of dunes and any vegetation, and having a meeting at the beginning of the season to agree so that everyone's on the same page as to what the expectation is with that. I recommend some signage in the dune area that reminds people to stay at least 10 feet from the dune with any machinery and to keep people off the dune. Sorry. And then just setting mechanical rates to skim the surface to avoid the movement of any sediment, and not using bucket loaders for any movement of sediment on the beach, but just to be used to remove seaweed if needed.
Okay, thank you. And these are essentially the same conditions for all of the beach raking that's coming up for all 4 of these projects. Is
That's
that right?
right. Yeah, they're all the same. So we don't need to go through
So
them
we
every
won't
time.
do
We
that
can
again.
refer back.
All right. Is there any further conversation among the commissioners for any of this? See, Paul.
Yeah, just to go back to that question, just so I understand. So the effort will be to approve this plan. However, again, if there's other work is being done on the beach, if that's determined to have taken place, does that have any bearing on this in terms of the revocation of this plan, or is there any other consequence that would the owners
Well,
would
that-
experience? I mean,
So
I
that would
don't
have
get
to
it
be.
where they might be doing work right now, but we're going to go ahead and approve this, which I guess would be okay. But I'm just concerned that if they are working on the beach inappropriately, that there be some at least discussion or possibly consequence for that kind of activity.
No, I think we've had the discussion. I mean, and we've told them in no uncertain terms that we don't want to see it. So if it happens again, we will move forward with an enforcement order, and I would suggest we would move forward with fines as well.
So the fact that it possibly did happen, that's just by the board.
Unless somebody has better, I mean, Kelly, I don't know how much information we have for this, and if it was just moving sand, and there's been no damage to the resource, then I think in an effort to move things forward, I would like to go ahead and do that. And again, with the idea that, I mean, we should be doing due diligence amongst the commissioners when you, if you are out and about and seeing and going by something, look at it and see whether or not there's any violations being conducted, and if so, then stop it right away.
Yeah, so I didn't get to this site today, so I don't have evidence of the sediment being moved at this site. I have photos of the work that was done on the South Shore Road properties.
Okay, so we will definitely bring that up with the South Shore when we get to South Shore. Any other discussion? Is there anybody else in the audience who has any comments on this? This is your last chance for comment.
I don't see any hands raised.
All right, would any further discussion among the commission? Not, may I have somebody craft a motion? Come on, folks, you just got to read it.
I'll do it. New guy.
All right, new guy.
I make a motion to issue an order of conditions approving project SE 83-2227 at 182 Baxter Ave, using the plan updated May 15, 2020 with the following standard conditions: 1 through 6, 11, 12, 21, 25 amended, 37, and the following special conditions. The extent of the nourishment area shall be staked and approved by the CA. Prior to any nourishment taking place, the CA shall be notified 5 business days in advance of the proposed nourishment to attend a site visit. Material inspections of beach nourishment material shall be conducted during the nourishment activity. Unsuitable material shall be removed from the site. 2 additional beach profiles should be provided for the east and west sections of the property to provide baseline profiles to evaluate the performance of the project. Beach nourishment monitoring shall be carried out per Mr. Perry's May 11th document. if proposed nourishment should exceed 500 cubic yards in a single year, or for the 3-year term of the permit, additional review shall be required by the Conservation Commission. Beach raking shall be conducted for the sole purpose of removing excess seaweed and trash. Effort shall be made to remove as little sediment, sand, gravel, and cobble from the beach as possible to minimize impacts and leave important substrate in place. Mechanical beach cleaning equipment such as a Charrington machine shall only be used in high use areas, and the frequency of the use shall be kept to a minimum. I think I got it all right. Or does that go on?
It goes on, I'm sorry.
Okay, all machinery should remain on the beach at least 10 feet seaward of dunes and vegetation to protect the stability and ecology of the area. The nourishment area will vary year to year based on the presence of dune vegetation and changes in dune extent. Removal shall be focused on the areas of significant accumulations of nuance seaweed. I think that should be nuisance. Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, leaving a sufficient rack line on the beach to provide a seed source, nutrient source, and foraging habitat for shorebirds and to help build the beach and dunes. Mechanical rakes shall be set to only skim the surface of the beach to avoid scraping or moving beach sediments. Bucket loaders shall not be used to collect seaweed, but can be used to transport seaweed collected by hand or by rake type machines. A pre-season meeting shall be held with the CA each year to review the conditions of the permit.
All right, very good.
Passed.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second, Pat Mulhern.
Pat Mulhern seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. So Bishop recused, so Durkin,
Aye with personal reservations.
Bernstein,
Aye, with the hope that they don't do anything they're not supposed to do.
Lawrence,
I with the same feelings of the above.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
With reservations, aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
So the motion carries 6-0 and 1 recused.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our next order of business is another notice of intent continued from May 7th, 2020 for SC 83-2230 Red Jacket Beach Limited Partnership, 28 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth, beach raking and beach nourishment on a coastal beach. Bob, is that you?
I'm still with you, and I have similar reservations that you all have. So I'm hopeful everyone will do the right thing. I think it's a lot of management, a lot of people to keep track of, but I think that you're aware of it. I think everybody will do a better job. We filed this a number of months, weeks ago. I can't recall. However, we've moved it to this date. This again is a similar project to the one you just had. It doesn't have a terrific amount of natural area. The beach at Red Jacket is bounded with the upland by an abrupt seawall. There are some minor dune deposits that you can find that are vegetated, and the same rules and regulations and practices that you just outlined in the last project would apply across the board here. The same theories of beach nourishment, of a low beach versus a small beach apply. Again, I would have to look through my notice to see the exact nourishment volume, but I do have that at my fingertips. Here, I'm looking at my own notice. I should be able to pull it up.
This one had 2,000. So
this is the 2,000, and it relates to a pretty vast area. It's 99,600 square feet of beach, and it is in pretty good condition these days. But over the last several decades, it has been nourished, and I think in the course of obtaining a permit to maintain the beach from a resort perspective, it only makes sense to include some level of nourishment that would be guided by the very same tenets. Although the monitoring at these locations along South Shore Drive, there's a very broad understanding that other nourishment projects are taking place. The municipality is nourishing occasionally. And it is felt that while we're going to comport with a standard practice at such time that nourishment would be triggered, where we measure a profile before and after, but then the monitoring would occur on a more visual basis, where after 6 months, for example, we visit the site, we document it. If there's a dramatic visual change, then there may be a need for elevation checks on the profile, but otherwise it's just such a broad area with so much activity going on. The need for monitoring is probably diminished. So I don't want to go on about this. There were no significant issues until something was just mentioned, and I hope that has been quelched. Hopefully, Mr. Vieira will get word back to the Davenport management. And then I would say, unless I've left something out, would be happy to take your questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Again, so we have the issues, the same issues. I don't think, again, we have any issue from a standpoint of what the project is, but we do have issues concerning possible violations.
I want to, may I say something?
Yeah.
It's David.
David?
I was taking a walk on Seagull Beach the other day and saw a rather large machine on that beach moving sand. Wasn't sure whether that was on my map it says it's the Thatcher or something beach, Thatcher Park Beach. I wasn't sure whether that's a public beach and it was a town doing it, but there was a large machine moving lots of sand. I was really getting nervous. It was getting close to that little mound of dune over to the top where it says bottom of slope in that area in there over by Parker River. Is that what you were referring to, Kelly, as work being done there?
I'm not sure which property that you're referring to. Is this?
I think the Thatcher Beach is that little beach that's sort of like a public, semi-public beach where it's raised, it's got some seats, and then it goes down.
Well, this beach, I'm looking at my Google map, and it's right in front of the red jacket, and it's called Thatcher Park Beach. Now, if you're telling me that's further down, where I'm talking about is right in front of the red jacket beach resort.
Yeah, I think on the Google map it says Thatcher Beach, but it's not referring to that town beach. It's referring to this beach, yeah.
Okay, so then I did see machinery on this beach, and really close. If you look at the Google map, you can see a little bit of green dune there, and it was getting very close. Of course, from where I was standing, it was hard to see. So I was on the other side of the river. But anyway, I did take pictures, but I thought it was a public beach, so I got rid of the pictures.
No, keep the pictures next time.
I will.
At least keep them until you ask.
Right.
All right. So Kelly, you have pictures of recent activity, or you saw recent activity?
Yeah, I'm just going to see if I can share. I'm just going to stop sharing this, and I'll see if I can share the photo. Try that again. Okay, so can you see that image that's got the little excavator on but this is one of the beaches further down towards Smugglers.
I believe it's Blue Water.
Yeah, so that's not this property. That's further down South Shore.
Yeah, I don't have photos from this property. I have them from and these are photos that were taken from the water. I have let me show you photos on the beach.
I will say the machine I saw was much larger than that one.
So these are the,
Oh, God.
so those are the two, like this top photo is the photo I took before the last hearing, and then this bottom photo is from this morning. So you can
Right,
see
so
very
they're
distinct.
clearly moving.
Kelly, I do have those pictures that were sent to me if you want me to.
Yeah,
throw 'em
that's
on
the one
screen.
that I just shared. I'm just trying to navigate that. Let me see.
Well, if you allow me to.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I
Okay.
have this one
Okay.
here. I can,
All right.
I'm just going to share this one. Not working. Let's try that again.
All right, come on.
Okay. Can you see the larger excavator in this picture?
I think that's the
Maybe
one
not.
I saw further down too.
And that is the furthest property down. That is 327?
That's Riviera, right?
Yep.
All right, so they clearly been going up. What did they run the entire beach?
Yeah, it was pretty much from that point, from where that property starts all the way up for those three properties. It was all leveled to a very uniform level. There was, let me show you, I'll just stop this and show you the other material. There was a comparison. So the top photo here is the where the shed was before the last meeting, and you could, because it kind of looked like it was sitting in a depression, and then this is the area today. Oops.
Jesus.
After and obviously, you know, the surface looks like it's kind of been flattened. It's not like a raked looking surface. It's like something has run the smooth over the top of it.
Like a little backhoe.
Like a backhoe.
And we now have a scarped dune that they've created from removing.
So that wall, that is a wall or abutment in the background. It just used to have a lot of sand up against it. So there was like dune. And if you look along to the side here, there's these, this fencing here. And so a dune was like starting to form in this area. But the sand has mostly been pulled back from that wall. So now you can see the revetment in these photos underneath it. And most of this area through here is just level now.
All right, again, so this is not.
No, this is at 327. So yeah, I only have photos for those three bottom properties, 327, 301, 329. I think it is.
So 291, 301, 327, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I did see the work at the other
David
place.
saw the stuff at. I mean, clearly they've been doing stuff over at the Red Jacket. I was there last week and a half ago. I guess I saw that there clearly had been activity again. Like so, and the idea that we don't have. We no longer have pictures that show first, before and after photos for the Red Jacket. Again, I'd like to move that one out of the way, unless there's other comments. But
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
Bob Perry here.
Yep, Bob, go ahead.
I don't need to tell you how hard that makes my job, but I do want to tell you that the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program comments are pending. So you're not going to be closing this tonight. And, whatever investigations or involvement you need to look into here. I just want you to know that we're certainly going to have to wait for NHESP. That Kelly and
All right,
I crossed that bridge the other day.
And
All right,
that is an
thank you
important
for reminding me.
point. That's an important point as well, because plovers were seen trying to nest at 28 South Shore Drive, and with all of that heavy equipment on that beach, obviously there's probably being done some disturbance to that habitat.
No, I did see that Audubon had put some symbolic fencing up on that property.
Right,
So,
yeah, I haven't seen that.
Correct. I'm aware that there was a fence installed. They do take note of this area. There are monitoring operations ongoing.
okay, so I think at this point then, does anybody have any comments about the nourishment end of it?
Well, this is Ellie Lawrence, out there today, actually a couple of weeks ago. It looked like it had substantial accretion that had occurred over the winter due to the prevalent southwest storms. We would, I hope, have a limit on how often they can do that, and whether, if the beaches are right, why even bother doing it?
I would agree.
Ellie, Bob Perry here. The monitoring program sort of points in that direction. You will find that the management probably wouldn't want to spend the resources if the beach was in good shape. And the nourishment is, it's being prepared for the contingency level problem. And so I don't think there's going to be, just a bunch of sand dumped out there for no reason. The management would bring their concerns to our attention. We would look at it. We would bring that to your attention. And I think that nourishment, it's activity that you would be notified for. And I don't know if you would have a way to put the brakes on it if it wasn't needed, but you could certainly try to build something in like that.
Well, from what the discussion has been going on, the activity has been going on without discussing it with us. So
yeah,
I have a
don't.
concern.
I for one don't agree with activity going on without authorization. That's not the world I live in, and I don't know that there's any nourishment going on. I think there's, from the looks of it, there's the ongoing annual get the resort open type activity, which unfortunately appears to have put some sort of a machine on the beach. But that's for you guys to, I think, speak with the organization about.
All right, so I mean, in terms of nourishment, I was there 2 weeks ago, and the whole neighborhood was completely flooded. And so my bigger concern about nourishment is this: are we just by throwing more beach sand on that beach, are we just essentially distributing flood water? It was probably some of the worst flooding I can remember seeing down there in at least many years.
Was it on the street, Bob?
On the street, yeah, from the street. Clearly, it had run around the last cottage before the beach itself, and through the couple of cottages that are, that low spot. 3 or 4 cottages down from the resort itself, plus the whole street itself was completely flooded. So partly from rain and partly from
groundwater, rain. Yeah.
Partly from rain and partly from, we had high tides then too. So it was a high tides 2 weeks ago.
Right.
So.
That's right. It will push the groundwater up. I think overall, if you look at that area, it's got seawall after seawall after seawall, and the contributions that the town makes from dredging and the contributions that various entities make from upland sources and other sources, that who knows if there'll be a private dredging project there. I don't know, but the upshot is that there's going to be a need for nourishment along that reach of the shoreline, primarily because of the commercial aspects to it and the seawalls. So I think it's a sound practice. It's not necessarily sustainable in the long run, but it's a sound practice to keep a permit in place for.
Okay, is there any further discussion among the commission?
I have a question or comment. I noticed in the narrative that I read, it says the order of conditions for the beach maintenance expired in 2018. Is also true for the other two properties. Being the new guy in town, is that relative, should that have been brought up back in 2018 with all this work being done? I'm nervous what happened between 2018 and 2020 at these sites.
Well,
I mean, I think,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I think they should be, I mean, obviously you should be more aware of your permits and when the permits expire. But in reality, does it happen? Yeah, it does. And
one thing, Mr. Chairman, I will say that was a pretty open-ended permit, and it was a lapse on the part of the management that they let that slip. And they're back before you, and they're going to get a serious order of conditions this time. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, without a doubt. Any further discussion? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to continue this hearing to June 4th?
Ellie Lawrence here. I make a motion that we continue this until June 4th, pending the NHESP comments.
All right, thank you, Ellie. Is there a second?
Second, Tom.
Paul seconded. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Bishop recused himself, so Mr. Durkin.
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 with one recused.
All right, next order of business continued for another notice of intent continued from May 7, 2020, SE 83-2233 Blue Water Limited Partnership and Edge of the Sea Incorporated, 291 and 301 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth, beach raking and beach nourishment on a coastal beach. Bob, we've heard it all, but if you
Yes, you have, and I won't put you through it again. This project, although similar, did have a dune restoration component to it. And we've included that in the notice, but to place the dune deposit where it may be more effective, where it may be sort of a natural tendency to grow, and would provide for, the same volume of sediment that would provide storm damage prevention and flood control against the bulkhead that's there, and also provide a source of nourishment for the beach. But that hummock of a dune that was a combination of natural forces and possibly activity we don't know, but we've quantified the area and then proposed a commensurate equal area to be formed and managed and protected that you see on this plan. That's the only difference. I would need to go again and just refer to my nourishment volume. And I think I'm at 291 here. I've got a bunch of notices open on my computer. Let's see, 321. There we
This
are.
one didn't include a cubic yards of nourishment.
It did not.
No.
Okay, let me just check what we might put it. Okay, we put 180 cubic yards in for the dune. And I can see you are correct. We had 31,500 square feet of beach. Far less, about a third. So you're probably into the 700 cubic yard range here, maximum. Same practices. I also want to mention that this is the access point for Blue Water and Riviera. There's a direct way to the water here. We didn't discuss that at Red Jacket, but they have direct access. And this access is shown on this plan so that you can see how the work would be done. Dune boundaries exist, and the same rules apply.
Okay. So this is the one that had, over the last few years, has had a significant reduction in that dune, that circular dune that you form where it says former dune formation.
Right. We went back to 2007 or so. We've gone back to give you a good, fair replication. That thing, I don't know if it's the crowds on the beach or whatever, but it wasn't wiped out in one chunk. It took about 15 years or so, and I believe it was knocked around by some coastal storms as well as the regular activity on the beach.
Now, what I believe is that by not protecting the dune, that the resort area has essentially allowed, if not encouraged, people to walk back and forth. If you look at the aerial photos from years past, you can see that it looks like my grandma's prize-winning blueberry pie with the crosshatched pattern on top of it, where there's paths going at 90-degree angles all throughout the entire dune. So of course, it's going to blow away because
yes,
no matter where the wind, which way the wind is coming from, there's going to be a funneling path down there. So
I agree with
the fact that we've seen the pictures that we've seen that Kelly has shown us with the most recent activity, and the fact that this dune has been allowed to erode as well. My personal opinion is I am not inclined to issue any kind of a permit to nourish or rake at this point. That's just my personal opinion, and I will turn that over to the rest of the commission and have them, if anybody has any comments or questions about the project, this is the time, folks.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a lot of hands being raised. Ellie.
Yeah, this really concerns me that obviously it was done when nobody was watching, and it makes me concerned that what else is going to happen down the road. It's a shame to see it happen, and they've been there long enough. They should know better. I'm along with you, Ed. I have reservations about allowing this, their suggestion or their proposal, their NOI to go forward due to these photos that we've been seeing.
Anybody else?
Yep. Over here, Paul.
Oh, sorry, Paul, you're behind. I have to pull up the panelists and attendees list, so I'm missing a third of my screen. So
okay, I'll yell out. I don't want to prolong the discussion, but it speaks to such a cavalier attitude about things. A note here is that there was some dune formation apparent in the last site visit, and there's no longer there due to leveling, and we saw the machine out there. It's just so unfortunate that such a important company in this town has such a cavalier attitude concerning the maintenance of the beach, and now they come forward looking for a permit. I have to agree that I don't think it's the right thing to do to grant such a request. Thank you.
All right,
Mr. Vieira would like to make a comment.
All right, anybody else from the commission first? All right, Jamie, go ahead.
Excuse me, this is Pat Mulhern.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, hold on. Pat, go ahead.
I just was wondering if they do with the dune restoration, is there any plans to do that in a time frame or anything like that in their discussion?
Now, somebody's having some terrible feedback. So if you've got something going on right now, you need to mute yourself.
I Bob Perry here. As far as that question goes, it should be conditioned. I think many applicants take their 3-year order of conditions, but I think there's every reason to, if they're going to satisfy the general understanding of what they've proposed, that's kind of the deal making that needs to go down between a commission and an applicant. If you have concerns about the timing, then you would seek agreement on that to do it, sooner. For example, at the end of the season, where you can move into a time frame when you can plant beach grass, for example, you get that work done once the resort closes, if you're going to ever get around to permitting it. Then the fence goes in, beach grass goes in December, and you're given the best chance of survival of that new dune replication area.
No, I don't disagree with what you're saying there, Bob. I'm just saying it's like I don't see that they're making a case for nourishment.
I don't disagree at the moment, but in the past, we're certainly not seeing any reason for a shoal to develop there. We're blessed with, I think, about almost a 2-year period without any severe northeasters. Not that that's the onshore wind there, but northeasters fill up Nantucket Sound with water, and then you get backlash winds. You can have all kinds of erosive events. I don't think it's a negative to have a permit in place for beach nourishment if that permit is controlled and it's within your power to control it, while they can still have it on a needs-based basis. And that's just, I think it's just perfectly natural to look at the number of nourishment activities that the town and other resorts go for. You can condition that. It could be based upon a profile, measuring, and review.
All right. Anybody else in the commission has any comments on this? Just so you know, I don't know if Kelly is with us right now or not. She's having some connectivity problems here, so she's sort of fading in and out.
I am back. I just turned my video off because I'm having some bandwidth issues at my end, so I can hear. I just can't see me.
Well, tell the kids to stop watching all the videos. That's all.
Oh, I did.
All right. So if the commission doesn't have any further comments at this point, I'll turn it back to Jamie. Jamie Vieira wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said on the Green Harbor matter, I will tell you I am completely unaware of what had taken place, and I'll take responsibility for not knowing what had gone on, but I'm going to find out. And I'm going to kind of get a sense of what's gone on, who did what, and make it abundantly clear. Well, that can't happen. And I'll get to the bottom of whatever it was that took place there. I would hope that, mindful that you folks are now going to put us under a microscope, necessarily and warranted, that we don't then put ourselves in a position where we lose out on having the contingency of the nourishment, because it's just that, contingency. But more importantly, it's the beach raking and the maintenance of the beach on a daily and weekly basis. I mean, it is a resort area. And doing that is a necessary component of our operations that's been going on since 2001. And there have been no issues with respect to the raking and the removal of the rack lines, et cetera, et cetera. The issue of this dune restoration was the subject Kelly and I discussed back in the fall. And it was a discussion of replacing square foot for square foot in the most logical place. We talked about in front of the seawall, but then figured that didn't make any sense. And where we've proposed to put it is in an area where there is no seawall, it's low level, and this would serve as an area to enhance that dune in between the Blue Water Resort and in front of Edge of Sea, which now gets eroded out from high winds and blowing sand, we think this is going to be an enhancement, and it's going to have the ability to grow and tie into the existing dune on the west side of the walkway, tie into the small dune area that's to the east of the seawall that's there. So there's a benefit there in terms of the dune enhancement that we would like to do. And there's the necessary component of the beach raking, which is separate and distinct from whatever took place. And I'll tell you, it's not going to happen again, because now that I know about it, I'm going to put a stop to it. I'll find out who did it. I know that's only my word, and I understand that. But I'm equally aware that each and every one of you has an opportunity to go out there on a daily basis and make sure that we're doing it right. And if we're not doing it right, there's consequences for that. But I would hope that you would give us the opportunity to maintain and to nourish, when needed, consistent with what we've done without issue since 2001. I don't know what took place recently. I'll find out, but it's not going to happen again.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Discussion among the commission.
Well, aren't we also waiting for the NHESP report on this?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to have to continue this. So I think the one thing that and maybe that'll give me a little bit more time to reconsider things, but I don't think at this point, like I said, in terms of the raking, my personal opinion is that raking is stupid, useless, waste of time and money. That's my personal opinion. I get resorts want to do it, and that's why I still vote to permit that activity. I have no issue, I guess, like I have no real issue with that. So I'm willing to entertain that. I'm going to have to reconsider beach nourishment at this point. That's just my own personal opinion. Since we have 2 weeks to go to wait, at least 2 weeks to wait for this. I'm going to take that 2 weeks and consider it. I'm going to go and make sure I visit the site again, although I've been there many times, and give some consideration that way. I encourage the rest of the commission to do the same as well. With that said, I mean, I think we also need to seriously consider some sort of, I know we keep talking about there's going to be some sort of restoration plan, but at the same time, I'd like to have some sort of better, I don't know, I won't make this contingent upon this, upon receiving a mitigation or restoration plan, but I think this needs to move up considerably in terms of priority, getting a dune restoration plan put together for this. So I think while we're thinking about this over the next 2 weeks, I think we should also, both the commission and the applicant should seriously consider some sort of an idea for a deadline and come to a understanding with that.
Mr. Chairman, this is
dune restoration.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jamie. If I could interject on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
We do have the dune restoration plan that's there. I don't know what time of the year. Usually my understanding for these things, for vegetation to take hold, it's a fall planting time. That's our timetable for that proposed dune work, would be in the fall, so that we could get the vegetation to hold. And that is our timetable on that. So I wanted to point that out to you, that we're mindful that if we got approval now, we would be asking for and letting the commission know through Kelly, our work would be performed in the fall. It doesn't make sense to do it in the spring, not have it hold, and then do it again in the fall.
No, I understand that.
One other point of order I wanted to bring up here. If we're going to continue, which it looks like we are, to 6-4 for those comments, could we add to the agenda? There are 2 outstanding COC requests affiliated with this property and 327 South Shore. They're 1552, 1552, and 1555. These were brought up back in August. They were continued, and we'd like to know if we could get those on the June 4 agenda as well, so we could close out those permits from 2001.
Just to
Kelly.
clarify on that, because I had a conversation with Bob about that this morning or yesterday, I can't even remember now. But those, we had 3 COCs that we reviewed. One was for Baxter Ave, and that one was continued. But 1552 and 1555 were actually denied, and the denial letter clarified that you would need to reapply for those. And I think kind of the logic there is because we can't really close them out until there's some resolution that enables us to close out the COCs. So those ones were actually denied. So my interpretation is that they would need to reapply to get those back on the agenda. That's just after my conversation with Bob, I went back and took a look at the letter and at the minutes from those.
And then just one other point later on in your agenda tonight is the COC request at 28 South Shore Drive, which is Red Jacket Beach Resort. Is that going to be something you may take up and we don't have to stay on the line for like we did 2 weeks ago with Green Harbor? Or is that going to get pushed off 2 weeks? Maybe get some direction on that now?
Yeah, so that was to close out the old beach cleaning permit for 28 South Shore Drive. And again, it's a little difficult to close it out when obviously there hasn't been a resolution to the issues at the property. So I would take advice from the commission as to what you think about that one. I mean, no, we need to close out these old orders, but it's just difficult under these circumstances.
Can I speak to that, Kelly? Because at the meeting on August 1st, 2019, there was SE 901 for 28 South Shore, which was beach raking, which the board voted to close out and issue the COC. 486 precedes 901, and it was just an old beach raking permit. So it seems to me, why are we going to leave open 486 when an intervening one for the same activity has been closed out?
Yeah, and my intention was to recommend that COC be issued tonight for 28, but that was before I saw the excavation that was occurring on the beach. And I guess you could say, well, this is separate because it's outside of that permit window. That permit has expired, so it's no longer valid. So they could be dealt with as 2 separate issues, in which case we could close out 486. Again, I'm deferring to the commission as to whether you're okay to take that approach and close this old order out this evening.
All right, anybody?
I know it's just messy. It's difficult to manage it when these permits have been left to sit for so long.
Yeah. I mean, are we selling the red jacket that we don't know? Then we don't know that. Is that the reason we need to get this done right now, or?
No, we're not selling the red jacket. The issue is just trying to get these old permits cleaned up, off the books, as it were, COCs recorded. So we're now talking about just the issues at hand regarding all of these properties. I'm not sure what leaving an old permit open where an intervening permit for the same thing has been closed materially changes what the board's view may be in connection with what's pending before it tonight.
So the logic is that by closing out an order with a certificate of compliance, the commission's basically saying that the project was completed per the order of conditions. But when there's some circumstances which demonstrate that that is perhaps not the case, it is difficult for them to take that position. So that's where the complication is. And you know, if they want to draw a line and just say, let's close out these old permits, procedurally, it may make more sense to when the new order is issued, the old permit is closed out, and do those within the same meeting, in which case these could all just be continued together and then dealt with in the same meeting once the other orders are then ready to issue. So there is some mechanism for dealing with any issues that are currently existing on the property.
All right, you know what, I mean, it's like this is an old SE number for beach cleaning. I guess my inclination is to get it the heck off the books and close it out. But with the understanding is like I am so sick and tired of hearing about every last thing that comes along here on South Shore Drive. Is always seems to be a problem, especially with these resorts. So I'm willing to close it out and get it out of the way. But I really want to start seeing something from the Davenport companies then that are going to be doing something in terms of managing the resource in a much more friendly way in terms of wetlands protection.
Mr. Chairman, your message, this is Jamie again, your message has been delivered loud and clear to me, and I have the ability to find out and put a stop to it. I will also say for the record that closing out 486 is in no way going to be construed by us as meaning the things you have concerns about are no longer concerns. They're valid, legitimate concerns, and I'm no way going to say, well, you closed out 486 and 901, therefore, what are we talking about? No, that's not going to be raised by me ever. So I would just like to get it on record and get it closed out, and then we can focus on the 2020 issues at hand.
Okay, I mean, like I said, I'm fine with it. Like I said, I mean, the COC can often be used as a means of leverage to get other things closed out if it needs to get fixed or closed out. But again, I mean, there's very little leverage that way with an open seat or with an unissued COC under these circumstances. So it would be my inclination to go ahead and issue that with all of the understandings that we've had so far this evening. So that's my opinion, but we're not closing it at this moment. That will have to happen when we're that's almost toward the end of the meeting. Then is that good amongst the commission? I see no hands raised. All right, so if that's the case, do we have any further discussion with any of this project? And if not, is there anybody else in the audience who has any comments or concerns with this? Last chance. Would somebody like to make a motion to continue this hearing until June 4th, 2020?
Can I just make one comment? Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, and I may have missed this in the earlier discussion when I dropped off. Is the dune restoration does include plantings, because I don't see that specifically called out anywhere, but I did hear someone mentioning that. It just doesn't seem to be called out.
I mentioned it.
Oh, no, it does. Yeah, it is on the plan. Right, you're right. In the profile, it has beach plantings, beach grass.
I don't know if I consider this necessarily a full-fledged restoration plan. I think I'd like to see a little bit more detail with that. But I think we can figure that. We can calculate part of that
so
next time around.
If an addendum and to prepare us for the next meeting could be added that just gave a description of the restoration that would be carried out as part of the dune restoration with some timings and some plant spacings and some plant numbers, that kind of thing, would that be useful to help us move forward?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to move this forward. That's what we're needing to do, and we'll have to I think we just need to put a time limit on, but we can discuss that next time.
Okay.
We can deliver that. Bob Perry here. We treated it rather generally because it is a fairly general practice to get sand. We provided you with elevations, contours, and a general note for planting. However, we can do something more detailed.
All right, I'm good with that. Would somebody like to make a motion then to continue to June 4th, 2020?
So moved. Ellie Lawrence.
Is there a second?
Second, Paul.
Paul Huggins, second. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mr. Bishop is recused. So Durkin,
aye,
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 with one recused.
All right, thank you. Next order of business is another continued notice of intent from May 7th, 2020 for SE 83-2231 Riviera Beach Limited Partnership, 327 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth, beach raking and beach nourishment on a coastal beach.
Mr.
Anything
Chair,
new here?
yeah, deja vu all over again, as they say. This, this application doesn't have the significant dune issues that Blue Water had on the last application. It does have a deposit, a dune deposit, and it does have protection measures proposed for that. I didn't have any objection from the management or some fencing that appears on the plan. I'm not sure they're aware of it, but the interest the commission had in hearing some of this seemed to call for a certain amount of fence, since that fence was also going to be employed on the adjacent property to the west. But the practice of beach breaking and the contingency plan for beach nourishment is identical to the last project you had. Open it up for your discussion at this point. Thank you.
All right, commissioners.
Ellie Lawrence here. Again, I don't think we got the National Heritage report on this, so I make a motion that we continue this until the June 6th meeting.
Second.
second,
Okay, is it, who seconded?
Tom,
Okay. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Oh, sorry. So Ellie made the motion and Tom seconded it, and Rick
Right.
refused. So Durkin,
aye,
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 with one recused.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next order of business, another notice of intent continued from May 7th, 2020 for SE 83-2228 William McDermott, 5 Salt Meadow Road, West Yarmouth, raise and replace of an existing single-family dwelling with appurtenances. And who is here for this?
We received a request to continue this item because they're still working on getting some engineering on the plan due to drainage concerns.
Okay, so would I have a motion to continue to June 4th, Kelly?
That's right.
Okay, June 4th, 2020.
So moved. Ellie.
Ellie moved it. Is there a second?
second, Tom,
Tom seconded. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bishop,
I think he fell asleep.
Yeah, I was gonna, Rick's going out for dinner.
Aye.
Durkin,
aye,
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Oops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to continue to June 4th.
All right, next order of business is another notice of intent continued from May 7th, 2020 for SC 83-2229 Robert J. and Rita M. Davis, 177 River Street, South Yarmouth, to maintain 2 existing 10x20 floats in place of a 6x10 primitive float and 1 existing additional float pile.
So unfortunately, we are going to need to continue this one because waterways still haven't met since coronavirus lockdown started. So we do not have a waterways comment on this one. It sounds like they're working towards virtual meetings in the near future. So hopefully we'll be able to get this one addressed soon.
Yes, we got notification about who's available for the virtual meeting, so that should be coming up.
Do you have an idea of what of the date for?
It's usually the first Wednesday of the month.
Okay, so it may be the day before our next Concom meeting.
That's correct.
Okay, so hopefully we may be able to move quickly from one meeting to the next so that we can get that one off the books.
Let's hope. All right. Do I have a motion to continue to June 4th, 2020?
So moved.
Rick said that Rick motioned. Is there a second?
Second, Ellie.
Ellie seconded. Kelly, could you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to continue to June 4th.
All right, next order of business, another continued notice of intent from May 7, 2020 for SC 83-2213 James and Tammy Saban, 66 Nottingham Drive, Yarmouth Port. Construction of landscaping features including stone retaining walls, stone patios, fire pit, spa, and associated plantings within buffer zone to a coastal bank and salt marsh. I believe this was only here for a new plan with change in some mitigation. Is Phil out in the audience?
We did have another hand raised in the audience. Dawn Marie, do you know?
It's
How-
508-394-1373.
I don't know if that was maybe related to one of the previous ones, or should we just unmute them and see?
Let's find out who. I think it's.
Hello, this is Phil Cheney here.
I knew it was Phil. There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Right.
Somebody.
All right, Phil. So we've called your hearing. Everything. I think everything has been done according to what we had asked last meeting with the expansion of the mitigation area. Is that right?
That is correct. We managed to get it up to a good 2-to-1 overall, including some additional shrubs and just absorbing all the area with the meadow and native plantings.
All right, commissioners, you have any questions from the commission? Oh, so it would help if I'm actually looking at the commissioner panelists here. All right, any discussion amongst the commission? Kelly, you good? You good?
Yeah, the only issue I have with this project is that remaining certificate of compliance. I think we have it on the agenda, but we hadn't received the engineer or surveyor's statement in terms of whether the work was completed per the approved plan. So the best I could do in the absence of that, which I understand Dan Oterlo is working on currently, is I did a comparison with the current conditions plan and just called out, I think there were some things that were being addressed by this plan, such as the downspouts to dry wells. The house footprint looks to be roughly per the approved plan. And then, of course, the 35-foot no disturb zone, which is being addressed in this plan. There was the only other thing, and I have to admit, I didn't look when I was at my site visit, but maybe Phil can clarify that on the plan, there was a 45 by 2-foot drainage trench at the base of the driveway, which was to capture the runoff from the paved driveway. And I know that there is a garden area at the base of the driveway, and there doesn't seem to appear to be runoff issues. So I'm assuming that that was addressed, though I have to admit I didn't look at that until I saw it on the plan this afternoon.
Yes, this is Phil here. And again, that I think is well addressed by that bed. I've also included a gravel drain strip along that edge of the driveway if that's would be beneficial on the current plan that you have now.
Okay, so then that just leaves what the commission wants to do in terms of, again, closing out the old COC in the absence of that statement in case there is anything else that that comes up that I haven't picked up through just reviewing the two plans side by side. But obviously that COC is on the agenda for later, but then it impacts this application too, as they always do.
If I may, the gravel drain strip is great, but that wasn't where I saw the runoff. The runoff is over more to your left-hand side where it went running down along the edge of the very edge of the driveway, like way over here. Where's the driveway? But it was way over on this side, not where the gravel strip was suggested. It doesn't look like that's where the water flow was. It just came down here and eroded and had some erosion issues. So is there a way that you can curve the gravel or make it a little more on that, I guess it would be the east side, to retain that water more? Because that's where the erosion is occurring.
I believe that is a temporary situation from some work that was done up above, and not really a consistent problem there. Perhaps some more gravel could be installed at the base of the, there's some fieldstone steps at that end of the driveway that I think the water's coming down. Perhaps we could capture at the bottom of that.
Yeah, it was where those steps were, and it's just funneling all down. If you can put some gravel there to hold it up a little better, that would be great, or a little retention.
Sure, we could have that specified. We just, as far as that, the certificate of compliance, perhaps adding some gravel there too at the bottom of the steps.
Okay, because that runs right into the river there.
Mm-hmm.
Tammy Sabin would like to make a comment.
Okay. So hold on for just one minute here. Let's resolve the issue here with COC as it relates to the COC. So Ellie, you're good as long as you see the revision to that plan.
Yeah.
To the plan with the concerning the drainage.
The extra retention there, yes.
Then I think what we should propose is to go ahead and we can go ahead and issue tonight for this project, making it contingent upon receiving a revised plan showing the new drainage retention area. And I would also add then that we just require that they file the COC within 60 days, or resolve it within 60 days. If that sounds all right. Kelly, are you good with that?
Yeah, so we have the COC application, so it would just be to receive the engineer's statement and address that drainage issue within 60 days. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, unless, I think that's
fine.
more than enough time to cover that. And
yeah,
obviously if they can get it done earlier, that would be great.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Just a point of clarification, Ed. Does this, towards our action tonight, alleviate the necessity for the petitioner to return again?
Yeah, I don't see that they'd have to come back.
No.
In other words, we'll go ahead and issue the permit for the mitigation and everything for what we're discussing right now.
Right.
With the understanding that they need to resolve that COC within 60 days. And if they
that'll
don't,
be taken
then
care of by the conservation administrator.
right.
Thank you.
But everything, that's just, it'll just be.
Making my way, walking fast.
I don't know who's saying what, but somebody needs to mute themselves. Is that good among you? Are you set, Tom? Do you understand what?
Yeah, I got it now.
Good?
Thank you.
Okay. Tammy Sabin, are you still there?
Go ahead, Tammy. Tammy, you might need to unmute yourself.
Hey, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Tammy.
Okay, this is Jim Sabin.
I knew it didn't sound like Tammy, but
no, we're on her computer. So I just want to quickly comment on that issue with the drainage. We've been here about 2 years, and that has never occurred until they devegetated the lot across the street up on the hill, and they had that torrential downpour. So that's kind of an anomaly. We're still going to address it with the drainage that we put forward, because we too are concerned with that. But I want you to understand that wasn't a regular occurrence. It's kind of it's once in the first 2 years we've been here.
okay, that's so noted then. And thank you for taking care of that. And then you understand with that we still need you to resolve that COC within the 60 days.
That's the downspouts and is
From
that
the
one?
engineer statement.
Yes, I think Dan and Phil, you should speak now, but I think Dan Ogeler is already on top of that, and we plan on taking care of all this at once.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, wouldn't that also include the original mitigation that was required during that COC?
Yeah, they would have to do all of the. They'll have to comply completely with the COC. In order for us to issue that COC, they'll have to have that full compliance there, or explain why it hasn't been done. Like that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody else in the audience have any comments or concerns with this project?
I don't see any more hands.
Okay. Commission, anybody else on the commission have any other comments or concerns? All right, would somebody like to make a motion for this project then?
I would like to make a motion that we accept SE 83-2213 with the order of condition being approved with the above discussion that we had, and the following standard conditions of 1 through 12, 16 through 18, 29 amended, 32, 36, and 37. Are there any other special conditions we want to throw in there? I didn't hear any while we were talking about this.
No, you covered the COC and the revision, the plan revision.
Right.
Receiving the plan revision.
Just to clarify that it was 29 through 32, so it included 30 and 31.
Oh, 29 through 32, okay. So
all right, any further discussion? Is there a second?
Second. David.
I heard somebody say second.
David.
David, okay, seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bishop?
Aye.
Durkin?
Aye.
Bernstein?
Aye.
Lawrence?
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Oh, look at that. We actually moved one off the table. That's
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you, Mr. O'Sabin. Right, next order of business is a notice of intent for SE 83-2234, Andrew and Cynthia Richards, 1069 Great Island Road, West Yarmouth, proposed raise and replace of a single-family dwelling in the buffer zone to a coastal beach and coastal bank on Nantucket Sound. Who is here?
This is Bob Perry's.
Bob Perry?
Yeah.
Bob, unmute yourself.
I'm here now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hopefully you can hear me. This job is a pleasure to be working on. I will summarize it for you. I don't know if you've been there to see the stakeout. I know Kelly has. The proposal is a raise and replace of an older home. The land is a bit offset from Great Island Road with something of a wide panhandle. The existing home is set in a kind of a native lawn setting with a lot of different pines and various trees, fairly well spread out. The coastal bank is very stable. It's revetted over about, maybe 2/3 of its length with a revetment that was permitted and constructed in the 1990s. And then as you go west, it's still got a lot of the rock remnant from both the island's terrain and rocks that were placed back in the 1950s. It's a very, very durable beach deposit there. If you've been down there, you know it's boulders, field stones, and these old concrete relics that are almost worn to the ground. So the land itself is very stable. The soil is of a glacial till nature for the first 6 or 7 feet. Very, very good for growing things. And the plan that we filed went to great pains to show every tree that was of any importance, because those trees are all being considered in this project. So you can see from looking at the plan, we've got a 50-foot buffer line stemming from the top of bank. There's a very nice, fairly narrow, but nonetheless a very nice fringe of coastal hardy vegetation, some native, some invasive, that runs along the bank. The lawn there is all of a fescue nature. Nobody wants to do a lot of irrigation. It's fairly natural stuff. The applicant is, although building a new home here, has every intention of maintaining the site pretty much as it is. We have the septic system located out of the buffer. You can see the lot is quite narrow, and given the narrowness, the applicant made efforts to retreat, and you can see the old footprint which exists today. And most of the house was pulled back to be almost entirely landward of the existing home. And there's an exception to that. And I think that's worth talking to you about, because that one exception is that appendage on the northeast, I should say, northeast, where the existing home today is 24 feet from the top of the bank, but it's the top of the bank location where there's a formalized revetment, very stable, a lot of good vegetation. The proposed home is 27, but it is within the footprint of the old home. And the reason for this, and we went through it in depth with the applicant, is they have spent a lot of time here. They've owned the house for 6 years. They knew the family that owned it prior. And they wanted to retain just a hint of the perspective that the old home had on the coast. And with the proximity, we've talked to them about it, we've looked into it. There's just no reasonable way that the little appendage there that's within the footprint of the old home can have a destabilizing effect on the coastal bank. However, given the fact that it's lying within the 35-foot buffer, about 70 square feet of that house are in the 35-foot buffer. We did not put that on the plan. It's just a fact, 70 square feet. There's a fringe of vegetation along the revetment cap, or not the revetment cap, the top of the coastal bank there. And after speaking with the applicant, there's no objection to thickening that particular fringe up along the coastal bank to the tune of a 3-to-1 mitigation ratio over a length. It looks like it'd be about a 40 or 50-foot length of the bank, would receive a dense planting of native shrubs that would thicken that fringe. There is a benefit to moving the house back. The type of landscaping going in here is not on the opposite side where the septic system is. It's a traditional, stone walkway and farmhouse variety, close to the house type of new shrubs. And on the water side, there are salt hardy shrubs that are going to be right in next to the patio and next to the deck. But other than that, there is no proposal to change the landscape from its present character, except that the old home foundation will be filled in. There's a minor grade change there, about a foot, maybe a little less. And the idea is to reseed the area and have it become what it is today. You can see a little change to the driveway, although that's pretty much out of the buffer. There's an unbelievable amount of effort made to try to keep the trees where they are. We've gone through it with the builder. And so the work limit you have here, confines the demolition activity and then the new house construction would proceed from there. Everything would be taken out the driveway. There is a component which is to replace the existing stair to the beach. There's a frame detail on the plan to that end, and it's a removal, and it's a complete in kind, in place, same width, same thing, no changes to that. And other than that, I think I've summarized this as well as I can to tell you, although you can see some dry wells, those dry wells would be very well sized. Probably not really necessary in the long run, but there's no objection to building them for the short term to collect roof runoff. I mean, they're good size. You can see they're 6x4 with a couple of feet of stone. There'd be a little bit of over digging there to get into the sand. Other than that, it's a wonderful project. There's a very high level of respect being paid to the buffer. But what we are asking for is that one location, and we're willing to mitigate significantly for it. So that's my summary, and I'd like to answer any questions you have, if you like.
Okay, thank you, Bob. It looks like a good plan, actually. Commissioners, any comments or concerns?
I really appreciate the idea of moving that back as far as they have, and for that small little piece with the mitigation would be a great plan. I would like to see the mitigation plan, though, presented to us before we approve it. The other question, and it's just a curiosity question, is what's the difference between the existing building and the new building that's going in there? What's the difference in the square footage?
Good question. I can't give you that. I can get that for you, but I'm going to speculate that there's an increase. No question about that. The old home is pretty well spread out in a bunch of sort of appendages, and it has some sheds associated with it that are being removed. I did an accounting within the buffer. I did not do an overall, but I had an accounting where it's about just over 1,000 square feet of building is being removed from the 50-foot buffer, and about just over 300 would remain. But then your total area, I would have to get that answer for you. And if you're seeking the mitigation to be on this plan, I can provide it then.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rick, you have a question?
I do. I agree that this is a good plan, Bobby. And if this were Bass River, I'd be concerned that you'd be back for the garage, then back for the pool. And that's been our experience. It's overwhelming, the amount of revisits we've had with the scope creep on these projects. But I think it's a good plan. I'd like to see the mitigation run further down the bank, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rick. Anybody else? Yeah, I think overall it is actually a good plan. I think I mean they are offering more mitigation than what this commission actually requires typically. It does fit in well. I think it looks like it's going to fit in well with the landscape. Have there been any decisions on mitigate, or who's going to be doing the mitigation plan? Bob,
yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if you're familiar. I mean, I've done my share of them. I think it's a rather straightforward situation in this instance. But Mary LeBlanc, who you last experienced with me at 6 Smiths Point Road, is just she's just wonderful. I hope Phil's off the line by now, but but she's a very talented landscape architect, and she is the landscape architect on this project.
All right, great. No, I see Bob. Phil does have his hand raised up. I think he's got comments for you. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, I think it's she's got a good reputation for doing nice plans. So Is that going to be an issue? Do you know where she is in the design phase with that, or?
Yes, it's complete, and I have to tell you, I thought it was part of our package, but it didn't get to you. I was looking all over trying to figure out a way to get it into the Zoom meeting for you. But as I said, the primary changes are on the opposite side. But
Okay.
I would say that you see there's a proposed little deck and a little proposed patio. There's a little bit of a screening. You can picture it, just little border gardens right there that are in one instance, they're greater than 50 feet, but they're right there at the boundary of those two decks. Other than that, it's not lawn. That's not what they're doing here. And I have to also reemphasize, well, if they did ever look for a car shelter, it would be out of the buffer. But I've heard no word about it. But the treatment of the ground here is to be native and simple, except, of course, for like the New England varieties that they would want near to the house.
Okay. All right, Ellie, do you actually want to see it before approving, or are you good with Kelly just looking at it and approving, or?
Well, I have to admit, I was not out at the site. I don't know who else had an opportunity to go out there. I would be okay with Kelly if she's good with that, with her her input on it and her decision on that.
Okay,
No,
I mean, it is pretty thick there, along the shore, so.
Can I just clarify, because the vegetation along the top of the bank is fairly sparse, and I just wanted to check what density of plantings was actually being proposed. I think I missed that at the beginning. So you're offering 3-to-1 mitigation. What did that actually translate to in terms of?
200 to 210 square feet. That I went over this with Mary just today, in fact, and it would be beach plum. It possibly could be bayberry, but there's a very thick coastal plant community all through here, and there are invasives. And although it's not on the table tonight, the Richards spoke with me about the possibility that they may seek from you to look into some of that, but it would be off to the sides. But our mitigation, if you look at this plan, would be where the work limit says work limit, right near the coastal bank, just on the water side of that work limit. That area would be sort of hem stitching the work limit. That we would find a 200 square foot strip that would enhance, probably double the width of the vegetation that's currently on the coastal bank for a distance of possibly 50 feet or so. And that's what we spoke of, because that we felt was where the mitigation would have the best relationship to the encroachment. And that's where the thickness of the vegetation to the bank, and you can see we've located it on here, but that's where it's the most narrow. So we thought that'd be the best place for it. Not to put it off to the sides, but to put it along the top of the bank where it belongs. And that would be 210, 3 times 70, if my math is right. And it would be woody shrubs. It's not going to be low-growing bearberry or something like that. It's going to be just, it'll blend in with what's there.
Can I just also ask a question with regard to the trees? I think it's great that all of the trees have been called out, and I wish that we had this on every plan. What is the intention with, because they're not marked as to what will remain and what will go. So would we be assuming anything within the work line limit would be removed?
Actually, no, I can't say exactly what, I mean, anything that's, if you just a general judgment of what trees you might see that are near the building, some of those are being considered, but every tree that's standing here is from my discussions, I mean, let me point a few things out to you, a little bit out of the buffer and in the buffer. I'd say in the buffer, everything is staying that's a tree. There's a 14-inch pine actually that's in the buffer, but it's quite close. I can't say, but that may even be something they'll try to save because it's not, it's not to the northeast of the house. But you can see trees that are outside the buffer in that new driveway segment. There's a few things there that have to go. But when you look at the buffer zone off to where that overgrown fenced area is there on the southwest, there's no proposal to do anything there. The work limit might go through there, but that's just, they might clean the area up a little, but there are no trees that I can see of any significance that are in the buffer that I could say would need to be removed. I'm expanding my view here. I don't want to tell you something that's not quite right. There's a 5-inch oak that I see that I don't see that coming out. On the northeast, there's a twin oak. When we get over by the deck, we're about at about 70 feet back. There's a triple oak. I bet that's going to have to go, but the 10-inch oak, no. An 18-inch pine that's right there at the edge of the buffer, yeah, I think that's gone. But we're probably talking less than a half a dozen trees that would be altered in the buffer, in the 100-foot buffer, if that.
And then just my other comment, I guess, the mitigation is great. I would love to see us reestablishing more of the 35-foot no disturb zone, but I understand that's a big ask. So we're probably going to end up at, I would say, about maybe 15 feet of buffer along that narrower strip, which is better than what's there. Obviously, it would be great to have a bit more because there is a considerable area beyond that, which is just going to be grasses. Albeit, I understand that it's not going to be your typical lawn grasses, so I appreciate that. Oh, and Bob, could you add the 35-foot so we can just see where that is? If you're adding the mitigation to the plan, just add the 35-foot no disturb on the plan as well as a buffer line.
Yes.
Are you all set, Kelly, then?
I am, yes.
Okay, any further discussion among the commission?
Well, are we going to continue this pending the 35-foot line and the mitigation plan?
My only comment on that is that I thought that this would be continued for the mitigation plan, so I did not prepare you your draft conditions.
Right.
So if you want to go ahead and make a motion, we will just cobble together the conditions based on the last project. But if you, I understand there's not a huge rush on this project. If you are able to wait and take a look at that mitigation plan, then that is perhaps my preference.
Let's just wait until, we'll continue it if that's all right then to June 4th, and that'll be more than enough time to get everything put together and add it to the plan.
That's fine. I don't object to that. If I'd had more of my marbles collected, I might have gotten that to you, but I wanted to speak with you about it first.
Okay.
Is there anybody in the audience that has any comments or concerns with this project? Raise your hand if you do.
I don't see any hands raised.
All right.
Rick has his hand raised, but I'm
Rick,
not sure if that's old.
I was going to say, Rick, do you have your hand, a question or? There you go. Okay. So if there's no further discussion, then can I have a motion to continue this to June 4th, 2020?
So moved. Ellie.
Ellie made the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Rick.
Rick seconded. Kelly, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Bishop?
Aye.
Durkin?
Aye.
Sorry, Bernstein?
Aye.
Lawrence?
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern?
Aye.
Motion to continue carries 7-0.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. I'll get to you soon. I'll get that. Thank you.
All right, moving on, move on to a request for amended order of conditions for SE 83-2041 Jeffrey Chismus 66A River Street, South Yarmouth, requesting to amend an existing order of conditions with regrading of mitigation area to reduce stormwater runoff. Bob, is that you as well?
I'm going to apologize in advance. Yes, it is.
All right, well, it's been the Bob Perry show all night, so.
I'm going to be hopefully ending your experience with me, but so for the record, Bob Perry, I'm working with Wilkinson Ecological on Mr. Chismus's amendment that relates to, it somewhat dovetailed with the Wilkinson mitigation plan that I believe has been approved previously. And in the northeast quadrant of the sort of the development area, spilling out a little bit into what was an area of old rugosa roses. There's a bit of a swale depression. Goes a little bit off the property. And Mr. Wilkinson and Jeff Chismus had pondered what to do there. I think that they're planting the area anyway, and there was a bit of a propensity for concentrated runoff to go through that swale. And their thinking is that by just regrading it a little bit and planting it, that they will distribute the runoff in not such a concentrated way. Yes, and it probably has to do with some appearances, and the neighbors on board with it, I'm told. And your interests are in good hands with Wilkinson, that's for sure. And I just agreed to take a look at it, try to understand it, and to file the amendment for them. And I really, when I first was introduced to the idea, I said, well, you're going to put all that planting in there, you're going to be digging the area up anyway, and that's going to count for quite a bit of the activity. So their sense is to take the curse out of the land while they're doing this, and that's the essence of this proposal. As I said, with Wilkinson minding the store on this type of coastal planting effort, you're in good hands. So that's the summary here. Not to prolong it, happy to try to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Just Kelly or Bob, one of you, there is a note on the plan with the neighbor to the northeast is fine with the work that's going on. There could be some changes to grading or causing water to run onto that property. Do we have a letter from the homeowner stating that they're all right with this?
And actually, the water runs onto Chismus from the neighbor.
Oh, okay.
It will continue to do that. It just won't be as steep.
All right, and so we do have a letter from the abutter for the overspill for the plantings, that sort of thing.
Kelly, I don't know the answer to that.
No, we do not have a letter from the neighbor.
Mr. Chismus would like to make a comment.
All right, if you would hold on for just a moment. Is there any further conversation among the commission first?
Yes, this is Ellie here. From the plan, it looks like the low areas where all those bushes are, and if they fill that in, they have to obviously remove the bushes. And the other question is how much fill is going to go in there?
Bob?
Well, I could only eyeball it. It's not something that I investigated, but I would speculate that they're looking at 5 to 10 at the most of what would be compactable topsoil quality material to have the best agricultural function for growing what they're going to plant. There's no interest in putting sand in there. It's too shallow a fill. It doesn't amount to more than 1.5 feet of grade change. So they'll do it, I believe, all with good quality topsoil.
And what about the shrubs that are there? That looks like that would have to be removed before they put that in.
Well, that again, I don't know that they would have to do that. Jeff, you may have discussed those details, but I don't think the steepest part of that is where those shrubs are. But Jeff, do you want to add to it? Because I may not know, some of those shrubs are in good shape. Some of them could take a little bit of surcharge of earth. And I know there's going to be a lot of planting there of the specified varieties that Wilkinson's proposed.
Right. Mr. Chismus, if you go ahead and if you can answer that, or you can unmute.
Yes, I'm just trying to, can you hear me okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so in working with Seth on this, the primary objective is to lessen the amount of water runoff into the river. If you notice on the right side of the screen, there's a lot of grass in my neighbor's yard, and there's a lot of runoff that goes into that. It's kind of like a swale now. And so Seth Wilkinson's objective is to take the curse out of that, as Bob had suggested, to eliminate the runoff. Relative to the comment earlier about a letter from my neighbor, yes, we do have one. And I thought that I had sent it to Kelly. If not, I can send it again. It's an electronic email, but the name of the owner there is Michael Shea, and he's absolutely in favor of this. Relative to Ellie's comment, yes, some of the vegetation there will be removed, and it will all be replanted with consistent with the Wilkinson plan that is dated, let me look at it here, 3/23/18 and submitted to the commission. And so the idea is to make it consistent with the rest of the rejuvenation of the riverbank, including things like black cherries, dwarf, or I can't even say it, New Jersey teas, sweet pepper bush, Virginia rose, and other native species and herbaceous species to be planted, because that area abuts the restoration area on the riverbank. And so the idea is to level that off as much as we can, but not to make it a culvert to collect water, but just so that the plants can absorb the water, again, consistent with the plan that Seth put together. And the idea is to eliminate runoff in the river. And so what we're thinking is that, yes, there's plantings there now, but as long as we're going to do this, we should do it right as we replant the rest of the riverbank. We've already started with the riverbank. I've got a bunch of American beach grass that we put in. I have on order to pick up 750 square feet of American beach grass to be installed as soon as we can get this this grading proposal finalized, so that we can begin work now while the weather's good. And so again, just in summary, the idea is to prevent runoff into the river, and to the extent that we need to remove the vegetation, our plan is to replace it with all natural vegetation consistent with the rest of the plan, and loop it right up in that area from the area of the sea bank where we're already going to be doing the work. The idea is it's best for the long run.
Okay, so my only other question about this, or concern about it, is then, so Kelly, can you help me with this? This represents a combination of what was previously approved as well as what's being amended as well today. Is that correct?
As far as I can tell, this plan is what was previously approved in terms of the plantings. That was a question I had, is that why are the proposed new plantings not actually shown on here? I'm assuming it's going to be contiguous to the proposed plantings and extend up, but I would have expected to actually have seen that on this plan. And just the, what the elevation difference is going to be between the two houses, so that we're very clear that we're not increasing runoff to, the other
so
property.
let me, if I might speak, please, I can read the cover letter from Jeremy Schwab from Wilkinson Ecological that speaks to that specifically.
Well, I'd really rather have a copy of that. So
You do, Ed.
April 22nd, is that the
April
date?
22nd, 2020, sent to Kelly.
It's what we filed with the amendment request.
Okay, so
Let me take a look. I have the file right here. So that's That's the letter from Wilkinson, right?
Yes, it's from
Yeah.
Jeremy Schwab, dated April 22nd.
So, yeah, but it doesn't show on the plan the area of planting. It describes the work. And I think all of the commissioners should have a copy of this as well. It describes the fact that it's the low point between the properties and what the proposed actions are. But I think what we're trying to clarify is on the plan, the planting area and the plants that are shown on the plan are not within the area where they're going to be replanting in this depression, right?
And I don't see anything for grading. I mean,
No, there's a change. I don't know if the 11 is a changed grade or an existing grade. I think it's a changed grade because it's in a box. But it's just a little unclear. And then what are the gradings on the other property so that we can see what the difference in grading is in terms of any runoff impacts?
Well, as Bob said, it's not terribly significant. It's probably about, I'm going to say between a foot and 18 inches. And the idea is not to make it completely level, but to take the sting out of it.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
It's just difficult for us to be able to quantify that in the plan.
Well, I mean, you can tell by looking at it that it isn't that significant, can't you?
Listen, I'm not going to argue this. If I don't see grading on it, then I'm not going to be able to make an honest decision on this. And it's like, so if that's the case, if you don't want to do the grading, you don't want to show the grading.
I'm not saying that you don't want to do it.
Well, then stop telling me that I'm trying to work with you here, and I'm trying to say it's like I can't see. No, I can look at it. I can see which way things are going, but I'm not going to sit there and approve something that's going to change grade by 18 inches and not have something that's quantified here on a map, on a plan. I'm not going to do that, and I don't know anybody who would do that.
I think maybe the issue is that the grading only goes up to the property line, so it's not showing how this relates to the property next door in terms of the grading.
And the flow, I mean, the statement was it takes the sting out of it, but it still doesn't stop the flow. It may stop a lot of it, but not the flow.
I think the combination of taking the curse out of it with vegetation would do a lot. I can see here that the 11-foot contour probably follows the 10, but it is off-site and it may never have been part of a survey. The way I see this occurring is if you were to show a contour, you'd probably just be showing the 10 much more of a shallow arc to intersect with itself. And I think a couple of spot grades would tell the story. You're not hardly changing anything enough to change 2-foot contour intervals. But I understand why you would want to see something like that, but it is a minor area. And as I said earlier, I did say at one point to Jeff that this was incidental to the planting work. But at any rate, I can't say much more. This is Wilkinson's plan, and I think the reason they're not showing grading is that it was just very subtle.
I mean, I get that, Bob, and like I said, I don't have any. I think if they do enough proper spot elevations, they can get away with it. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm not going to sit there and approve a plan that's going to allow grading to come in without seeing some sort of contour or some sort of graded elevations or something with that elevation, because I know what's going to happen. Next thing you know, I'm going to see where if I'm sitting there and saying I'm agreeing to 18 inches, and then all of a sudden 3 years from now I'm going down the river and I see, why does it look like it's 3 feet? And well, that's the thing that's the only thing we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, I understand the need for detail. It's difficult to say that no detail is needed. It's just, this is actually so minor that I saw Wilkinson's plan and I said, well, I get it. It's a sort of massaging the ground in the course of planting this stuff. And I was not addressing the removal of vegetation in any evaluation that I made. but I can see the 11-foot contour is not telling the whole story here.
Right.
Yeah, but it's minor. Kind of puzzled by the 11-footer, actually. I have the computer file of this topo. We did it. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up, because the 10-footer is off the property. It may be that it's level right there. As I said, it's a subtle change. So
While we were speaking, I just went and took a look at the electronic file because this wasn't part of the filing, but I do have an email that Mr. Chismus forwarded to me from the neighbor, Michael Shea, at 258A Pleasant Street, which says, please use this email as documentation that I approve all your plans that involve landscaping on our common boundary. This includes any grading, seeding, and filling on that portion of our common boundary that approaches the river. If any commissions or governmental authorities need additional information from me, please let me know and I'll happily provide it.
All right, so is there any further conversation? Commissioners, anybody have any comments?
Well, I agree with you, Ed. I'd like to see revised on exactly what's going on before we approve it, because right now, if we say yes to this, we have no backup if it's changed because there's no plan.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I feel the same way. We've had, to be blunt, we've had some inconsistencies with this applicant before along the waterfront. So I would definitely want to see a plan before I was able to vote.
All right, so it looks like we'll be continuing. Kelly, do you have any other comments that you need?
Let me just check. Yeah, so I would just suggest that we have the proposed plantings for that area shown on the restoration plan, so that we're clear to what's going to be planted in that area and the extent of those plantings, which should match the extent of the vegetated area as it is at the moment.
Okay, so we're all set. You're set with that, Bob?
I'm making a note of it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Any further discussion on commission?
I have one more question, Mr. Chairman.
Rick?
Why does it make sense to remove the mature plantings that are there?
I personally did not know that it would be necessary to do that, but I would be interested to find that out from Mr. Wilkinson.
The reason is because we want to make sure that the plant, first of all, some of the plantings, can everybody hear me? Just make
sense. Go ahead.
Some of the plantings in there are dead right now. We've had a lot of fierce winter weather here, and some of them have not survived. Some of them are barely alive, and then some of them are alive. The idea behind this is that if we're gonna replant this and we cover up the root systems of these plants, that some of them may not survive, particularly if they're already half dead. And of course, the ones that are already dead need to be removed. As you know, we've had some fierce storms, 70, 80, 90-degree winds in the winter, and the plantings have not survived well, frankly. And so part of the thinking is to try to plant them with native species that are more hardy, more resilient to some of the fierce winter weather.
By the way, although I'm looking at something on my file here, and I was not prepared to speak to this, but I don't know that those plants were not confined within the work limit, the original project. They are right on the boundary. It's possible that the original project did not include those in the work limit, but I thought that they had. It's just they've been preserved up to this point. If you see the amount of work that's going on there, I think that they might deserve an examination, as Jeff says. They could use some enhancement if they've been harmed or set back.
frankly, most, if not all of them are out of the work limit.
Oh, they were. Okay,
Yes.
so they were not included earlier. Okay, thought maybe you were trying to save them as long as you could.
No, well, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I didn't think it was going to be this big of a problem because it's a minor adjustment here. And I apologize to the commission if they think otherwise.
Jeff, I think that, you know, if some plants can be placed there that are commensurate with what's there and it accomplishes the goal, I think we would want to try to provide the grading and get just a little indication of some plant lists, see how that is, and then get back in here on June 4.
I agree.
All right, any further comment from the commission? Is there anybody in the audience who has any comments or concerns with this?
I do not see any hands raised.
All right, Jeff, you have your hand raised. Have you just not?
No, I'm sorry, I'll lower it.
Okay. All right, the last chance for this. All right, if not, would anybody like to make a motion to continue this until June 4th?
I would just like to make one more comment if I can.
Jeff, yeah, go ahead.
Relative to Mr. Bishop saying that he's had some issues with me before. You know, I'm a little upset by that, frankly. And the reason I am is because whatever we did, it was never with poor intent. We just moved sand to Windmill Beach. And when I listen to all the issues that are going on with Davenport and the destruction of dunes and that they get a pass and then a comment like that gets raised with me, I kind of take respectful exception.
All right, so Mr. Chisholm, just so you understand, they are not getting a pass by any means. So you may not be aware, but there's already been some enforcement actions going against them for Green Harbor. There's other enforcement actions that are in the process. So this is not being directed at you or anybody else. It's done fairly and evenly. And there have been, you have to admit, there have been issues with the management of the projects before. So I don't think this is meant as any intended as any
stand across the intertidal zone. And it's not my intent to fight with you. It's my intent to be clear about what really did happen and what really did not happen.
But we're not discussing that tonight. Okay, that's not part of this conversation.
Well, I understand that, but when somebody makes a comment, you know, it's only fair to clear the air.
And you've made your point.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in the audience? If not, may I have a motion to continue to June 4th, 2020?
So moved.
Paul, I see he made the motion. Is there a second?
Second, David.
David seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Bishop? Bishop?
Unmute. Aye. Sorry about that.
Durkin?
Aye.
Bernstein?
Aye.
Lawrence?
Aye.
Oops.
Aye.
Huggins?
Aye.
Mulhern?
Aye.
Motion carries to continue 7-0.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you. One question, if I might interrupt. There's a 28 South Shore Drive COC for. Do you need me to stand by on that? Because I got the feeling you sort of settled it earlier.
No, I think we're good on that, Bob. Yeah, no, we're good. We're good on that.
Well, you've got more staying power than me, and thank you for bearing with me tonight. And I'll look forward to speaking with you on June 4th, if not sooner.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mr. Chismus. All right, next order of business is a request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-1428 James Saban 66 Nottingham Drive, Yarmouth Port. Kelly, I believe we've mentioned everything we need to mention with it. They're going to finalize this in the next 60 days.
So
I make a motion, we approve the COC for SE 83-1428.
That was Ellie. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Pat seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to issue the COC.
All right, next order of business, another request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-1471, Stephanie Pelton, 367 Route 28, West Yarmouth. Kelly, do we have?
Yeah, so I recommend issuing the COC. There was an issue with some silt fencing that was remaining from the project, but they have, I spoke with Arlene Wilson and they're addressing that at the moment, so it will be removed before I issue the COC. There was also a slight encroachment into the 35-foot, but the 35-foot line was fairly conservative in terms of the wetland delineation. So, and there's very dense, good vegetation immediately on the end of that line. So I'm comfortable with issuing the COC for this project.
Okay, and Arlene, do you have any issues or comments for this?
Arlene, you've been unmuted.
Thank you for asking, Ed. I don't need to prolong this any more than necessary. I think Kelly said it all, and we already have someone who's going to come out next week and clean up. And we'll get you some pictures as soon as it's done.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, if there's no further discussion, is there somebody who'd like to make a motion to issue the COC for SE 83-1471, 367 Route 28, West Yarmouth?
So moved, Tom.
Tom made the
Second.
motion.
Second, Ellie.
Kelly seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Bernstein,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to issue the COC.
Okay, great, thank you. Next order of business, another request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-486 Cape Cod Engineering for 28 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth. That is what we were discussing before with the South Shore, with the Red Jacket Inn issues. I think everything's been said on this, so we are set to issue the COC. Is that right? Anybody have any other issues with that? If not, is there anybody in the audience who has any comments with this?
I see no hands.
Okay, if not, may I have a motion to issue the request or the certificate of compliance for SE 83-486 28 South Shore Drive, South Yarmouth? Somebody
So
say
moved.
it. Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Pat, you second.
Pat seconded. Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
I'm sorry, my audio is cutting in and out. Who made the motion on that?
David.
Okay, thank you. And Pat was the second. Okay, so Bishop, Bishop is recused, I would assume. Durkin,
Aye.
Johnston, Bernstein, haven't updated this.
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye with personal reservations.
Hoops,
Aye.
Huggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 with one recused.
All right, next order of business, other business, minutes for April 16th, 2020. Tom, did you get a chance to read those?
I did, all 14 pages. It was an excellent job.
That sounds like a wonderful
I make a
nighttime
motion
reading.
that we approve these minutes.
All right, is there a second?
I second, but there is some spelling errors. We'll just figure
There
it.
are, and what I had will suggest to Ellie, is that I drop this off tomorrow at the town hall, and she can make whatever changes are necessary for the draft. I don't know. I imagine you and I both agree on the misspelling or typo or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Is that all right with you?
That's all right with me. I love autocorrect.
All right, Kelly, you
Well
want to?
done.
Thank you, Tom. Kelly, you want to call the roll?
Sure. This was from the 16th. So whoever has a list of the names of the people who were present at that meeting in front of them, I think it was everyone except Phil. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
And
So
I can't vote either.
And I was
Yeah.
going to say David was not appointed yet. So
okay. So Bishop,
Aye.
Durkin,
Aye.
Lawrence,
Aye.
Hoops,
aye.
Buggins,
Aye.
Mulhern.
Aye.
That's everyone.
Motion carries 6-0. One recused.
I have a question. Oh, you almost threw, Ed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have 35 Andora's lane violation. Any updates on that, Kelly?
I'm wondering if we have people in the audience maybe related to this.
There
A
are
couple
two.
of people left. If someone wants to raise their hand, if they are here for this, maybe not.
Mark?
I haven't had any correspondence from this property owner. I do admit though that we did talk about this, and I think that was on at the April 16th meeting, but it dropped off my radar under the circumstances. So I put it on here more as a prompt that we needed to move forward with some action against this one. I think the minutes from April 16th gave the property owner until May 7th, which was the last meeting, to respond, and we haven't received any response. So I will look at taking further enforcement action against them with your support.
Okay. For the attendees in the audience, is it Mark Coutone or owner? Are either of you here for this matter? Please speak up now if you are. Tom, they are not. Are they muted or?
They are unmuted, but I see no hands.
Because I'm showing muted now.
Yeah, they need to unmute themselves at this point because she's allowed them to speak, but they may not be
okay.
related to it.
All right, so Mark and owner not related to this. Okay, so Kelly, we're good. Do you need anything else from us at this point, or you're just going to pursue it?
Yeah, so I will make contact with them, but having received nothing when this was promised at least a couple of months ago, do you want to move to issuing a fine on this one?
I would advise yes. With the rest of the commission.
Refresh my memory. Is that the?
This is Aunt Dora's, where there's significant vegetation removal and a wall that went up along the.
Oh yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and they've been
Yes.
given quite a bit of time to come up with a filing and a restoration plan, and.
Yes, I remember now. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it's time to move forward with fine.
Okay. Do you want to go with a $100 fine to start off with and we'll go per week until we receive something?
Sounds good.
Well, it's just say just make sure you tell them it's 100 a week until we get something back from them.
Well,
okay.
I don't know. I think 100 a week. We'll give them 4 weeks, and then we'll increase it by another 100. We can go up to 300, right?
Yeah, we can do that too.
So because they could ignore us and just pay 100 a week, 400 for a view, a month. I would just compound it as they keep ignoring us, if they keep ignoring us. Just my thoughts.
Okay. Everybody else in agreement with that? Anybody who doesn't agree with that? Raise your hand if you don't. All right, so Kelly, 100 a week for 4 weeks, and then we'll go from there. We'll start putting it up.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, anything else with that one?
Nothing further with that one. I do have a couple of updates. If you want to go to those now, or I think Tom had something he wanted to discuss.
Okay, Tom, yeah, we'll go to Tom first.
Okay, appreciate that. There have been a number of suggested webinars and seminars, etc., that have been proposed by the Association of Conservation Commissions, etc. I wanted to know if any of you had familiarization with any of these, and do you have any strong suggestions for individual participation in them? And if you do, Kelly, how do we put the payment requirements on you?
That is a very interesting question because it relates to my staff updates.
Okay.
So let me share with you, there's a chat, oh, okay. Let me share with you a slide. This is a slide that was presented to the Board of Selectmen at their last meeting. And it talks about increasing the money being taken from the Wetlands Protection Fund, which is our source of funding for everything, for education purposes. There is also currently a spending freeze on because we obviously are facing a pretty dire situation in terms of our revenue stream in the town. So that's the first point, is that we're not actually able to spend any money at the moment. And then this slide is related to the next financial year, where we're looking at them taking 20,000 from the Wetlands Fund and actually tapping into also the Conservation Fund to the level of $45,000 for monies that would go into the general fund to help cover our budget. And that was for us to have a balanced budget. And then I just have another slide here, which just shows the current balance on the Wetlands Fund, which is $25,000. So it leaves us with a balance of $5,000 for next financial year, and the $8,000 has been our approximate revenue for this year, which is a little down on what it has been in past years. The Conservation Fund, which is the fund used to manage our conservation properties, we've been using it recently for our invasives management program, but it's also available for updating the open space and recreation plan and other land management activities. They're looking at transferring about half of that funding. In fact, it's more than half because some of this money is encumbered already for invasive species to the general fund to meet the budget shortfall. So financial situation is not great for us at the moment. So I would suggest that we look at, as our first priority, any free education opportunities that come up, and I certainly send those through whenever I see them, and there are a lot of good opportunities. We might just have to hold off on the MACC paid training at this point. Oh, now the other point I want to make is that this budget is going to the Board of Selectmen on June 2nd for the public hearing. So you are welcome to make comment at that public hearing if you would like to.
Kelly, I thought the Conservation Fund was something that the town couldn't touch.
So the situation is the Wetlands Fund has to be used for the purposes of enforcing the wetland regulations and administering the wetland regulations, but that includes salary. So that account can be tapped to the extent that it's there in order to pay my salary. At the moment, it supplements my salary. And then the Conservation Fund is designated to the Conservation Commission for the management of conservation land without having to go to a town meeting vote every time they want to spend some money. So it's to give them the flexibility to go and spend that money on land management without having to keep asking for it through town meeting. That's its purpose. However, on a 2/3 majority vote at town meeting, the money can be returned to the general fund. So it would need to pass town meeting at a 2/3 majority vote for them to be able to return that $45,000 to the general fund.
And the Wetlands Protection Fund, that comes from the filing fees.
That's our filing fees, yeah. So the filing fees, as in our state portion, our portion of the state fees, the local bylaw fees, which we also collect, automatically go to the general fund. So they're not included in that number, but we don't see those. They go to the general fund.
And what about all the fees that we charge for everything else then? That all
goes to
into
the general
wetlands?
fund. No, that goes to the general fund. The only thing that goes into the Wetlands Protection Fund is our portion of the state fees.
And again, where does the conservation fund money come from?
Conservation fund money, it comes from two sources, either from donations from the public or a money that is dedicated to that fund through town meeting. So if the town chooses, and this hasn't been replenished in many, many years, but going back a number of years, money was put into that account. It just hasn't been done in a very long time. So that balance that's been sitting at a...
Oops.
Nope, we lost
Well,
you.
my interpretation of what you've said, Kelly, is that if we can find a freebie, we should take advantage of it. If it's going to charge us money, then we either have to pay for it ourselves or negate taking the course. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, close enough. I do have another question, and this is directed towards Rick. I want to thank you, Rick, for your email. Unfortunately, I couldn't access the details of your funding proposal. How would I do that?
I'm sorry, I dropped off the call there and I lost my connection, so I missed what you said.
That's all right. I didn't say anything important.
I'm sure it was very important.
I'm talking to Rick right now.
Okay.
Tom, I'll call you. I'll call you after the fact.
You call me? Good, thanks.
Kelly, we just decided that we figured you would just do your job for free, and that way we'll save even more money that way.
Can I say something?
Take up a collection, Kelly.
We'll have a bake sale. Tom, I hear you make a mean brownie. Is that right?
Oh, listen, with sprinkles.
We can have a 50-50 raffle too.
Kelly,
Right, so
Kelly, I have a question about the fund that you said people donated money. If people donated money to the conservation fund and that money is going back into the general fund, isn't that kind of wrong? I mean, you donate money for a purpose, and that purpose is not being used.
I had the same thought.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it is donations and how much was money that was just allocated to the conservation fund, and we are looking into that, because if money was donated for a specific purpose, then yes, you're right. If it was just money that was allocated to that fund through town meeting, then that is a different story. So we're trying to look back at the moment just to see. I think that the majority of it has just come from town meeting. However, I think this is a really good opportunity for us to actually start advertising to the public that we have the conservation fund, and maybe we could solicit some donations, because that's kind of the point of having it, is to make people aware that there is a way for them to donate money that is specific to be used for conservation purposes.
Can we tap into the Friends of Bass River to help us out with that?
To ask for donations, I'm sure they'd love to support us in that.
I think they would.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, I did.
Kelly, one other question or comment. Is there a way for you to send me everybody's email and phone numbers in case I need to call them on the commission?
There are some issues around deliberations.
Okay.
Other outside of the meeting.
Okay.
Generally,
You could send him, he could ask for 3 and you could send him 3, or actually 2, right? Or he can look it up on his own, but I can't advise you to send a mailing list out, only because of open meeting.
No problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
open meeting issues.
Yep, no problem. And I just took that course too, so I should have known that.
They catch you up here with all the different what ifs and what maybes.
You could send me your notes, David, on the course. I haven't got the money to pay it.
Oh, it was a freebie.
Yeah, that one's free.
That one I had to take.
Kelly, are we good on this? Anybody else have any other questions on the funding issue or what? Kelly, do you have any other information on the sugar-like sand that appeared out at Bass Hole?
Ah, that was you, was it? I heard a comment today that the commission were not happy with the nourishment that was done at Bass Hole, and I didn't know where that had come from. So they have a permit for nourishment at the beach. They use Chapin Beach sand. So it's within the same system, but obviously that's a man-made beach. So the native material is whatever has been put there. I haven't been up to take a look, but it's obviously it's sand from that system. It's just a little different to what was there, but I can go and take a look. They do have.
I mean, it doesn't. It's not an issue. I mean, the consistency seems to just about the same. It's just there was a notice. I mean, when you drive into the parking lot or into down to the boat ramp, you look to your right and you say, "What's this huge pile of sugar-looking sand? It looks like Florida." You know, I mean.
But it's the same thing at Englewood Beach. There's a huge pile.
I think there's always.
Is there a replenishment plan for both of those beaches?
They're included in the 10-year dredging and beach nourishment permit that the town has, which is up for renewal in the next 12 months, I think. So
I noticed,
we will be reviewing that again.
And I noticed a backhoe up, there's a Wimbledon Association, but next to it is a public way to the beach. And there was a backhoe moving sand there. And I asked him, who are you doing this for? And he said, the town.
Which beach would that be?
Do you know where Wimbledon Association is around Wimbledon Drive? I'm not quite sure. Maybe Bay Road. I don't know. I'll send it to you.
Okay. I know they are doing some beach maintenance. Like I was out at, oh wow, that is white sand. It looks like, it does look like sugar. Wow.
Not as white as one up, that we saw off of Mayflower, that's for sure.
That's true. They are doing some maintenance work around town at the moment that I've been monitoring, like at Smugglers Beach. They're doing some where they're removing sand from the boardwalks and putting it back onto the beach. And I'm communicating loudly and clearly that they need to keep any equipment off the toe of the dune and avoid touching anything that's a vegetated area, so that they're just removing the sand that accumulates on the structures and the boardwalks, etc.
I will send you the information about where this beach is.
Oh, now Bay Road, yes, I do recall something in that area, but if you can send that to me, I can look into it.
Yeah, okay. So basically what I have to realize is I can be really nosy and take pictures and send them off to you.
Yeah, I do actually recall Bay Roads that Carl von Home did give me a heads up on that one, that that is one of the beaches included in the beach nourishment, because there is a town way there that has a small beach. So yes,
that's exactly what he was saying.
I think that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Then I won't send anything to you.
Okay, but yes, nosiness is my main source of information.
Because I'm very nosy.
Unfortunately, that's what people are giving me now.
Ellie, did you go look at that dock down in Dinah's Pond?
Yes, I did.
We'll have to tell Kelly about that later.
Well, I looked it up on Google Earth. I need to have her walk me through how to do the time back machine so that I take some time off of her hands and do it myself. So yeah. I'll have to have you, Kelly, a lesson from you.
You're on mute.
I also think that we are going to need to step up the monitoring of some of these projects, just so we're picking up some of these, beach maintenance issues and things. So we might want to allocate certain properties to different commissioners that they could keep an eye on them. That might help me, especially because chances are I will not be getting a part-time person back now. So I'm going to be back on my own again, which means the workload is going to get more.
Yeah, spread it
No
out,
offense to
Kelly.
Dawn Marie,
Let
who
us know.
abandoned me.
Yeah, I think if we just
Sorry.
sort of separate it and through different parts of the town, I think we can cover everything. I mean, if you have specific things that you want more coverage or more monitoring, by all means, let us know too. But I mean, we should be paying attention to those sorts of things anyhow, whenever we go by certain areas. But
yeah, it might be useful to allocate some areas to different members that they can just kind of keep an eye on. So where we know we have projects.
that would be the
So,
easiest thing to do.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
I know you guys are already giving up your time, so I'm mindful of that, but that would be appreciated.
Happy to do it.
That's some thought.
Yep.
Let us know.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're in all different areas of Yarmouth, so we can just zone it that way.
And then the problem comes is, what do we do after that?
Call you.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, any commissioner can shut, right? I mean, I'm trying to think about this. Any commissioner can shut something down.
Yeah, so I wonder whether it would be useful to have some standard forms that people can keep with them that can actually issue a cease and desist piece of paper to hand to people to at least get to that point. And then I can take it on from there, but at least to get some immediate action on something, you have that that ability.
Yeah, because if we walk up to them and say, you got to stop this, else, flip us a single finger wave and just keep going unless there's some paperwork behind it.
Yeah.
And then we can call natural resources, but they're spread thin too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I caution people to, be careful with it too. Remember, it's, if you're going to be doing enforcement like that, where you're trying to shut something down, remember what you're doing. That it means lots and lots and lots of money to somebody who's operating that backhoe to shut it down for a day or for a week or whatever. So,
well, not only that,
they may be very angry about it. So,
well, not only that, tempers are flaring with everything going on, and people are very short-tempered, and they just need to live on island time, because that's the only thing we can do at this stage of the game. But yeah, there's going to be tempers flaring, and I hate to be on the water with all the procedures that you can't raft up and you can't have people on board. That's going to be a real fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely be mindful of, avoid confrontation, and also remember that unless there's a permit issued or an application for a property, we don't have the right to enter the property. So I'd also be mindful of that don't enter a private property.
And also remember, folks, that ultimately, I mean, I know everybody's committed to doing a good job, but a little bit of common sense. It's a wetland and nobody wants to see something damaged, but it's not worth getting a knife in the back or getting run over by a backhoe or being assaulted.
Your safety first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also have one other. Yes, pictures are definitely good. I have one other point. Something that's come up in the last couple of days is there was some interest from the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth to build a traditional Native American shelter on their property. And to do that, they were proposing to harvest 20 stands, I guess, trees of Atlantic white cedar from a cedar swamp in Yarmouth. And they were planning to do that on the basis that Native American rights to harvesting, that the usual regulations don't apply to that. And they were proposing to do it next week. So I've looked into it to the extent that I can, and I can't find anywhere that it says that the wetlands regulations don't apply to that. So I've advised them.
I was going to say, that's not true.
Yeah, so I am requesting that before they go ahead with anything in that respect, that they put something together to come before the commission first, so that you can have some review of that as an application. But just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And I don't know whether something like that would I mean, I know it's a difficult, any kind of vegetation removal in a wetland, and also removal of Atlantic white cedar, which is obviously a diminishing resource area on the Cape, would be difficult to approve. So I wanted to kind of just put that out there and get a feel for the response to it.
I ran into this last year in Barnstable. It's like I know, speaking with the people that were doing the harvesting there, that I was always told it was that they prefer swamp white oak.
Okay.
And again, they use saplings, but it doesn't take a huge quantity, but it would certainly be noticed. But I think they need to. They definitely need to have some more formal approach to it than just say, hey, we're going to go over there and
chop it out,
harvest our white cedar saplings, our Atlantic white cedar saplings. So
okay, yeah. So that should be coming up hopefully in the not too distant future to resolve that one without it becoming a.
Do I assume they have to be Native Americans?
I think for the rights to apply, but it seems they don't apply in this instance because of the wetland protection regulations. And there's also the issue of property ownership, because the area they're proposing to take them from are actually privately owned property. So I'm assuming they also need to get permission
well, they
from
still
that
have
property
to.
owner.
They have to be part of a recognized tribe, and they have to be recognized by the tribe itself. So, I mean, assuming we're talking about Wampanoag.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah.
I will say I've been to one or two of their meetings, and I didn't see a whole lot of people who hit me as Native Americans.
You can't make that. You can't make that assumption, but
I know, but
if they are recognized by the tribe is recognized. So what it basically means that they still have to follow the rules, but it's not like we would be making them do an RDA for this. It's just that they need to seek permission from the commission. It's the best. I mean, that's the best way to handle it. It's not a formal. There's not.
Okay, so you wouldn't expect a formal filing for it.
Not for something like this, where they're well, I mean, depending on how.
They're looking at 20 from what I could. Yeah, I was looking. I mean, I think the first thing would be to come with some more information so we can understand the scope of it. But from the information I have, I would be looking at about 20 saplings.
Yeah, so it's just the small hut that they're looking to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's. I mean, if it were something that was like 30 feet long and 15 feet wide, that would be a different story.
Yeah, it's a relatively small structure. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll speak with them, try and get some more information, and perhaps we can get them on the next agenda so we can have a discussion about it.
Okay, sounds good.
That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else?
Oh, this is Pat. I was wondering how's that court case going that we were involved with the Red Jacket property?
Not really going.
At this point, we're still waiting for them to come back to us with an updated plan for the restoration area.
Is this the same? Okay, the same one we were just.
This is Green Harbor. This is for Green Harbor.
Green Harbor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's been a nice to see you guys, but I have another Zoom meeting in 20 minutes and I haven't had dinner yet. So I'm going to make a motion, if it's all right with you guys, that we...
Ellie, hold on for just one last one. I'm going to try one last time. Mark Cutone, owner, or N. Cohen, do you have any business before the Conservation Commission? If you do, please unmute yourself and let us know. I'm going to say last chance. Okay, go ahead, Ellie.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kelly, would you make a roll call, please? How about I do that? Ed Hoops, aye. Tom Durkin?
Aye.
Rick Bishop?
Aye.
Paul Huggins?
Aye.
Ellie Lawrence?
Aye.
David Bernstein?
Aye.
Pat Mulhern?
Aye.
That's 7-0, carries unanimously. See you, everybody. Thanks for coming in. Thank you, Kelly, for putting everything together. Hope your bandwidth issues get resolved. And thank you to Dawn Marie for acting as the backup moderator, attendee monitor.
Good night, everybody.
Okay,
Stay
thank you,
safe,
everybody.
stay healthy.
All right, we'll see everybody.
You too.
Well-
Enjoy the weekend. Bye-bye.
Mark Cotoni? Who's he?
Sorry about that. Is the meeting over?
Yes, we just closed it out.
Okay, thank you. I will stop the record.
Thank you for all your